Hello, wonderful people. Welcome to Potter Paradox, your story destination. We have an absolute treat for you today. What if Narcissa Malfoy discovered Harry's abuse at age 6 and sued for custody using ancient pureblood protection laws? If you're enjoying these stories, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support keeps the stories coming. With that said, let the adventure begin. Chapter 1. The Boy in the Garden. Narcissa Malfoy strode through the quaint Muggle plant nursery with as much dignity as her expensive robes would allow. She'd transfigured them into something the Muggles might consider normal, a sleek cream-colored pantsuit that still managed to look impossibly expensive, but she couldn't quite hide her discomfort at being surrounded by non-magical folk. Ridiculous, she muttered under her breath as a portly man brushed past her without apology. The things one does for proper potions ingredients. The Herbologist Guild had been absolutely useless this season. Their venomous tentacula cuttings were pathetically undernourished, and their fanged geraniums lacked proper coloration. So here she was, in Little Whinging of all places, seeking out a peculiar Muggle nursery rumored to have accidentally cultivated magically adjacent plant species. Narcissa paused at a display of oddly vibrant purple flowers with unusually serrated leaves. Not quite magical, but close enough that they might actually work for the immunity-strengthening potion Draco needed. Her son's frequent childhood illnesses worried her more than she let on to Lucius. As she carefully selected several healthy specimens, movement across the street caught her eye. A painfully thin boy with a mop of unruly black hair was working in a garden beneath the punishing summer sun. Something about his methodical movements seemed off. He couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, yet he worked with the resigned efficiency of someone much older. Narcissa found herself watching him instead of examining the plants. The boy wore clothes that hung off his small frame like elephant skin, patched and faded to an indeterminate gray. No hat protected him from the scorching sun, and she noted with growing concern that no water bottle sat nearby. "Excuse me," she asked the nursery attendant with practiced charm. "That house across the way, number 4, is it? Number 4 Privet Drive?" "That's the Dursleys," the woman answered, her tone suggesting the name left a bad taste in her mouth. "Perfectly normal, thank you very much," she added with a mocking lilt. "And the child gardening?" The woman's expression soured further. "Their nephew. Troublemaker, according to Mrs. Dursley. Though between us," her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, "the boys never seemed right to me. Jumpy little thing. Teachers at the primary school have concerns, but the Dursleys shut down any questions." Narcissa's perfectly manicured nails dug into her palm. "I see. Thank you." She paid for her purchases with the strange Muggle money she'd exchanged at Gringotts, then crossed the street, drawn by an instinct she couldn't quite name. The closer she got, the more details emerged. The boy's hands were raw and blistered. Sweat dripped down his face, cutting clean trails through a layer of dirt. And when he turned slightly, Narcissa caught a glimpse of something that stopped her heart. A lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. "Potter," she breathed, freezing in place. Harry Potter. The boy who lived. Working like a house elf in a Muggle garden. Looking half-starved and completely exhausted. Before she could process this revelation, a bellow erupted from inside the house. "Boy! What's taking so long with those weeds?" Harry Potter flinched so violently he dropped the trowel he was holding. It landed on a half-completed flower bed, crushing several newly planted petunias. The front door slammed open and a massive man with hardly any neck and an alarmingly purple face stormed out. "What have you done now, you worthless freak?" Narcissa instinctively reached for her wand but stopped herself. She couldn't intervene openly in a Muggle neighborhood, not without causing an incident that would bring ministry officials swarming. "I'm sorry, Uncle Vernon," the boy whispered, his thin shoulders hunching defensively. "I'll fix it." "Damn right you will," Vernon snarled, grabbing the boy's arm hard enough that Narcissa could see his fingers leaving white pressure marks on the child's skin. "After everything we do for you, the food we put in your ungrateful mouth, the clothes on your back, I'm sorry," Harry repeated, eyes fixed on the ground. Vernon gave him a rough shake. "No dinner for you tonight. Fix this mess, finish the weeding, and then clean the garage. And if I hear a single sound from you when Dudley's watching his programs, you won't," Harry promised quickly. "I'll be quiet." Vernon released him with a shove that sent the small boy stumbling backward. "See that you are." The man stormed back into the house without a backward glance, leaving Harry to frantically salvage the crushed flowers, his tiny hands shaking. Narcissa stood frozen, perfectly still beneath a quick disillusionment charm she'd cast the moment the Muggle man appeared. This couldn't possibly be right. Harry Potter, the child who defeated the Dark Lord, the savior of the wizarding world, treated worse than the lowest Malfoy house elf. She watched for another hour, moving occasionally to avoid suspicious Muggles, as Harry worked methodically through an extensive list of chores no child his age should manage alone. When he finally finished in the garden, a horse-faced woman emerged to inspect his work, her lips pursed in perpetual disapproval. "The roses need more mulch," she said coldly. "And you've missed weeds by the fence. Do it properly or you'll stay out here until dark." "Yes, Aunt Petunia," Harry murmured. The woman, Lily Potter's sister, Narcissa realized with shock, went back inside without offering the clearly dehydrated child so much as a sip of water. Something cold and hard formed in Narcissa's chest. She'd never given much thought to Harry Potter's welfare after that night. The boy was Dumbledore's responsibility, wasn't he? The old wizard had swept in and taken control, assuring the wizarding world their savior would be raised safely, protected by ancient magic. This was not protection. This was not safety. And Narcissa Malfoy, whatever else she might be, would not stand by watching a magical child suffer under Muggle cruelty. Not even the child of James Potter. "Dobby," she whispered. A faint pop heralded the appearance of the Malfoy's house elf, who immediately sensed the need for discretion and remained invisible to Muggle eyes. "Mistress," called Dobby. "Return to the manor. Bring me water and a nutrition potion disguised as Muggle food, something sweet that a child would eat. Then fetch my camera from the study." "Yes, mistress." While Dobby was gone, Narcissa watched Harry struggle with the heavy bag of mulch, his skinny arms straining. When he bent down, his oversized shirt rode up, revealing a pattern of faded bruises across his lower back. Dobby returned with a canteen of water, a chocolate bar infused with healing and nutrition potions, and a magical camera designed to look like a Muggle device. "Wait here," Narcissa instructed, taking the items. She approached Harry carefully, dropping her disillusionment charm when no Muggles were looking. "Hello there." The boy startled violently, nearly toppling into the rosebush. "I'm sorry. I didn't see you, ma'am." "No need to apologize," Narcissa said, softening her normally crisp tone. "You're working very hard out here in this heat." Harry's eyes darted nervously toward the house. "I'm almost finished." "I'm sure you are. You're doing an excellent job." She held out the water canteen. "You must be thirsty." His eyes widened with naked longing, but he shook his head. "I'm not allowed to take things from strangers." "Very sensible," Narcissa nodded, trying a different approach. "My name is Narcissa. I was just at the plant nursery over there and noticed what a good job you were doing with these roses. My own garden at home has been struggling this summer." She took a deliberate sip from the canteen. "See? Perfectly safe water. And I have this chocolate that will just melt in this heat if someone doesn't eat it." Harry's resistance crumbled at the sight of the chocolate. "You're sure it's okay?" "Absolutely. My son Draco loves these." Harry accepted the water first, drinking desperately until she gently advised him to slow down. Then he took the chocolate with reverence, as though he'd been handed a precious gem. "What's your name?" she asked, though she knew very well who he was. "Harry," he mumbled around a small bite of chocolate that he seemed determined to make last. "Do you live here, Harry?" A nod. "With my aunt and uncle and cousin." My parents died in a car crash when I was a baby. Narcissa nearly choked. A car crash. Uncle Vernon says they were drunk, Harry whispered, eyes downcast. That's how I got this. He lifted his fringe briefly to show the lightning scar. For a moment, Narcissa couldn't speak through her shock and fury. These muggles hadn't just abused the boy who lived, they'd lied to him about his heritage, his parents, everything. Harry, she managed finally, you work very hard for someone so young. He shrugged. Got to earn my keep. Before Narcissa could respond to that horrifying statement, the front door banged open again. Boy! Who are you talking to? Vernon Dursley's suspicious voice carried across the lawn. Harry paled. You should go, he whispered urgently. Please. I'll get in trouble. Narcissa nodded slightly, slipping the empty water canteen from his hands and backing away. As Vernon Dursley approached, she disillusioned herself again, but not before snapping several unobtrusive photos. There was a lady asking about the roses, Harry explained, his voice small but steady. She left. Vernon looked around suspiciously before grabbing Harry's arm again. Inside. Now. You've been out here dawdling long enough. I haven't finished did I ask for excuses? Vernon hissed, dragging Harry toward the house. Ungrateful little freak. The rest of his tirade faded as they entered the house, but Narcissa had heard enough. She gestured to Dobby. Return to the manor with my purchases, she instructed. Tell no one what we've seen today. Yes, mistress. Narcissa took one last look at the painfully ordinary house where extraordinary cruelty was clearly taking place. Then she apparat away, the crack of her departure covered by a passing car's engine. The ancient tomes in the Malfoy library smelled of leather, magic, and secrets. Narcissa had been searching for hours, her normally immaculate appearance slightly disheveled, blonde hair escaping its elegant twist. The rightful guardianship of magical children, she murmured, pulling another heavy volume from a high shelf. Blood wards and protective magics. Ancient houses and their wards of protection. She'd sent the children's monitoring spell she used on Draco to keep watch over Harry Potter. The small enchanted mirror on her desk had shown the boy being locked in a cupboard under the stairs after a meager dinner of toast and water. A cupboard. Not a bedroom, a cupboard with a tattered mattress and spiders. The monitoring charm had caught Vernon Dursley's parting words, and not a sound from you tonight, boy, or you'll wish you'd never been born. Every maternal instinct Narcissa possessed had roared to life. She might be many things, a pureblood elitist, a Slytherin to her core, wife to a former Death Eater, but she would not, could not, leave a magical child in such conditions. You're still at this? Lucius stood in the doorway, elegant as always in immaculate black robes, his long platinum hair tied back. He surveyed the scattered books with raised eyebrows. There has to be a way, Narcissa said without looking up. The old laws protected magical children from Muggle persecution. This sudden interest in magical child welfare wouldn't happen to relate to your mysterious outing today, would it? Lucius drawled, moving closer to examine the titles she'd pulled. Dobby seemed unusually tight-lipped about your whereabouts. Narcissa hesitated. This required careful handling. Lucius had been devoted to the Dark Lord, and she was proposing they rescue the very child who had destroyed their master. Yet her husband's loyalty to family outweighed all else, a trait she needed to leverage. I found Harry Potter, she said bluntly. Lucius went perfectly still. Explain. He's living with Muggles, Lily Potter's sister and her husband. They're abusing him, Lucius. She spread out the magical photographs she'd taken. Look at him. Malnourished. Bruised. Working like a house elf. They have him sleeping in a cupboard. And this concerns us how, exactly? Lucius asked, though she noted he couldn't quite look away from the images of the small, broken-looking boy. He's a magical child being abused by Muggles, Narcissa said fiercely. He knows nothing of his heritage, nothing of magic. They told him his parents died in a drunken car crash. That got his attention. What? They're deliberately suppressing his magic, his history, everything. Narcissa stood, facing her husband directly. Whatever we may think of James Potter or Dumbledore's side in the war, this is about a magical child's right to know his heritage and to be raised among his kind. Lucius's eyes narrowed. Dumbledore placed him there. He would not take kindly to interference. Dumbledore left a magical child with muggles who hate magic, Narcissa countered. Who hurt him for accidental magic, I'd wager. What exactly are you proposing, Narcissa? Lucius asked carefully. She lifted the oldest book from her desk. The Ancient Protection Rights of House Black. As a daughter of House Black, I can invoke the right of sanctuary for a magical child of significant lineage being harmed by those without magic. The Potters were a noble house. The law still stands. You want to claim Harry Potter? The boy who lived. Bring him into our home. Lucius's voice rose slightly. Have you lost your mind? I want to save a magical child from abuse, Narcissa corrected sharply. And yes, I understand the political implications. I'm not blind, Lucius. Think of the advantage of raising the child the Dark Lord tried to kill. Lucius hissed. If he returns, we explain we're keeping his enemy close, learning his weaknesses, Narcissa countered. But in the meantime, we gain the political capital of being the saviors of the boy who lived. We gain custody of the child the entire wizarding world considers their savior. And we ensure he's raised with proper magical values instead of whatever Dumbledore might have planned. Lucius paced the length of the library, his cane tapping rhythmically against the polished floor. It's too risky. I'm doing this with or without you, Narcissa said quietly. Lucius stopped pacing. I beg your pardon. I've already contacted my sister Andromeda for legal advice, she continued calmly, though mentioning her disowned sister was a calculated risk. As a daughter of House Black, I can invoke the protection rights alone if necessary. You would defy me on this? Narcissa met her husband's cold gaze unflinchingly. I would. I've seen that child's eyes, Lucius. I've seen what they're doing to him. Magical children belong in the magical world, not suffering under the heel of magic-hating muggles. Would you want Draco treated that way, if something happened to us? It was a low blow, but effective. Lucius's jaw tightened. Of course not. Then help me. With your political connections, we can make this happen quickly and quietly. Without you, it becomes messier, more public. She softened her tone. Think of the possibilities, Lucius. Harry Potter, raised in our world, with our values. The influence that would give us. She could see him calculating, weighing risks against potential rewards. Finally, he nodded once, sharply. Very well. But we do this carefully, strategically. I'll contact Grimclaw at Gringotts first thing tomorrow. If anyone understands exploiting ancient legal loopholes, it's the goblins. Narcissa felt relief flood through her. Thank you, Lucius. He lifted her chin with one finger. I hope you understand what you're getting us into, my dear. Dumbledore will not surrender his pawn without a fight. Let him try, Narcissa said, steel in her voice. Some games even Dumbledore can't win. 3 days later, Narcissa sat across from Grimclaw in a private meeting room at Gringotts, the weathered pages of the Black family protection ritual spread between them. Lucius stood by the window, watching the busy streets of Diagon Alley below. The right of magical guardianship hasn't been invoked in nearly a century, the goblin said, his long fingers tracing the ancient text. But it remains valid under both ministry law and the older Wisengamot charters. And the blood wards Dumbledore claims protect the boy? Lucius asked. Grimclaw's smile revealed too many pointed teeth. Blood magic works both ways, Mr. Malfoy. If the blood relatives mistreat the child, the protection weakens. Based on the evidence you've gathered, I'd say those wards are hanging by a thread. We need absolute certainty, Narcissa insisted. Dumbledore will fight this with everything he has. Then perhaps more evidence is required, Grimclaw suggested. The rite allows for magical assessment of the child's living conditions. A specialized recording spell, approved by the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, would provide irrefutable proof. How soon can we arrange this? Narcissa asked. I've taken the liberty of preparing the necessary paperwork, Grimclaw said, sliding a scroll across the table. With your signature, I can have an authorized cursebreaker place the monitoring charms today. 3 days of evidence should suffice. Will Potter know he's being monitored? Lucius asked sharply. No. The charm is undetectable, especially to a child untrained in magic. Narcissa signed without hesitation. I want daily reports. Of course, Mrs. Malfoy. Grimclaw rolled up the scroll. And regarding the actual removal, should the evidence prove sufficient, which I have no doubt it will, you'll want ministry representatives present. I suggest Amelia Bones from Magical Law Enforcement. She's strict but fair, and having her witness the conditions firsthand would be advantageous. Bones is no friend to our family, Lucius pointed out. Precisely, Grimclaw nodded. Her testimony would carry more weight for being reluctantly given. The 3 days of monitoring proved even worse than Narcissa had feared. The recording spells captured Vernon Dursley backhanding Harry for accidentally dropping a plate. They recorded Petunia Dursley calling him a freakish burden when he asked for seconds at dinner. They showed Harry's cousin Dudley and his friends chasing and beating the smaller boy in what they chillingly called Harry hunting. And they showed accidental magic, a broken toy repairing itself when Harry touched it fearfully, a plant blooming instantly under his small fingers, followed by harsh punishments for freakishness. By the 4th morning, Amelia Bones herself sat in Grimclaw's office, her monocle fixed firmly in place as she reviewed the evidence. This is disturbing, she admitted, her normally stern face troubled. Albus assured the ministry the boy was well cared for. Clearly, he was mistaken, Narcissa said diplomatically. Madame Bones fixed her with a shrewd look. Why the sudden concern for Harry Potter's welfare, Mrs. Malfoy? Your family was not known for its support of his parents. My family supports the proper treatment of magical children, Narcissa replied smoothly. Whatever disagreements existed between adults should never impact a child's right to safety and knowledge of his heritage. Noble sentiments, Bones said dryly. And convenient, given the influence that would come with custody of the boy who lived. Lucius stepped forward. If you prefer, Madame Bones, we could take this evidence directly to the Daily Prophet. I'm sure the wizarding public would be fascinated to learn how their savior has been treated under Dumbledore's arrangements. It wasn't quite a threat, but Bones understood the implication. A public scandal would damage more than Dumbledore's reputation, it would undermine faith in the ministry itself. That won't be necessary, she said crisply. The evidence warrants investigation. I'll arrange a team to visit Privet Drive today. If conditions match these recordings, temporary removal would be justified under child protection statutes. And the ancient right of protection? Narcissa pressed. Bones sighed. If you're determined to invoke it, and if the evidence supports your claim, the Wisingamot would have to consider your petition. But understand, Mrs. Malfoy, this would mean a full hearing. Your family's history would be relevant to any custody determination. We welcome the scrutiny, Lucius said confidently. 4 hours later, Narcissa stood on Privet Drive alongside Amelia Bones, 2 Aurors, and a witch from Magical Child Welfare whose name Narcissa hadn't bothered to remember. They'd arrived discreetly, with notice-me-not charms ensuring the neighbors wouldn't interrupt. Vernon Dursley's face cycled through an impressive range of colors when he opened the door, red to purple to an alarming shade of gray, as he registered their robes and wands. You're not welcome here, he blustered, trying to close the door. Ministry of Magic, Department of Magical Law Enforcement, Bones said crisply, holding the door open with surprising strength. We're here regarding your nephew, Harry Potter. There's no one by that name here, Vernon tried desperately. Bones' expression could have frozen fire. Mr. Dursley, we have extensive evidence of a magical child living in this home. Obstructing our investigation would constitute a violation of Section 13 of the International Statute of Secrecy, carrying penalties including imprisonment. From inside the house, Petunia Dursley's voice rose shrilly. Vernon? Who is it? Don't let them in. Too late. Bones and the Aurors pushed past Vernon into the aggressively normal living room, with Narcissa following closely behind. Where is Harry Potter? Bones demanded. Vernon and Petunia exchanged panicked looks. Their massive son peeked around the kitchen door, his mouth full of food. You have no right, Petunia began, but fell silent when one of the Aurors strode purposefully toward the cupboard under the stairs. Hominum revelio, the Auror murmured, and a soft glow emanated from behind the cupboard's locked door. Narcissa's heart clenched. Even knowing what to expect, seeing the small padlock on the outside of the cupboard made her want to curse every muggle in sight. Open it, Bones ordered Vernon, her wand now visibly gripped in her hand. When Vernon hesitated, the Auror simply vanished the lock with a flick of his wand. The door swung open to reveal Harry Potter curled on a thin, stained mattress, blinking in the sudden light. Hello, Harry, Narcissa said gently, kneeling to his eye level. Do you remember me? From the garden? Harry nodded slowly, confusion evident on his thin face. The lady with the chocolate. That's right. She smiled, though it took considerable effort to keep the fury from her expression. These people are here to help you. Help me? Harry repeated, as though the concept was foreign. Mr. Potter, Bones said, her voice softer than Narcissa had ever heard it, we're from the magical world. The same world your parents belonged to. Harry's eyes widened. Magical? But Uncle Vernon says there's no such thing as magic. Vernon made a strangled noise. Now see here, Silencio, the second Auror cast almost lazily, and Vernon's voice cut off mid-protest. Magic is very real, Harry, Bones continued. And you are a wizard, just like your parents were a wizard and witch. They weren't drunks who died in a car crash? Harry asked in a small voice. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as magical anger emanated from every witch and wizard present. No, Harry, Narcissa said, shooting a venomous glare at Petunia. Your parents were brave, powerful magical people who died protecting you. They were heroes. Tears welled in Harry's green eyes. Really? Really, Bones confirmed. And we've come to take you somewhere safe, where you can learn about magic and your heritage. Would you like that? Harry looked warily at his aunt and uncle. I'm allowed to go. They have no say in the matter anymore, Narcissa assured him. The child welfare witch stepped forward, waving her wand in complex diagnostic patterns over Harry. Her lips thinned as she reviewed the results. Malnutrition. Evidence of poorly healed fractures. Untreated myopia. She glared at the Dursleys. This child needs immediate medical attention. Pack your things, Harry, Bones instructed gently. Harry glanced around the cupboard. I don't, there's just. Narcissa peered inside and saw the pitiful collection, a few broken toys clearly discarded by his cousin, some ridiculously oversized clothes, and a thin blanket. We'll get you everything you need, she promised, fighting to keep her voice steady. You won't need anything from this place ever again. When Harry stepped out of the cupboard, he barely reached Narcissa's waist. In the better light of the hallway, the contrast between his condition and his corpulent cousins was even more stark. Petunia finally found her voice. You can't just take him. Dumbledore said. Dumbledore is not above the law, Mrs. Dursley, Bones interrupted coldly. And the law is very clear about the treatment of children in your care. We never wanted him. Petunia spat. He was dumped on our doorstep with nothing but a letter. A doorstep? Narcissa repeated incredulously. In November. The great Albus Dumbledore left a 15-month-old infant on a doorstep in November. Bones clarified, her monocle nearly falling from her eye in shock. Petunia nodded viciously. Didn't even have the decency to knock. Just left him there for anyone to find. Narcissa exchanged glances with Bones. That single admission might be worth more than all their careful evidence gathering. Mrs. Dursley, Bones said with deadly calm, I strongly suggest you and your husband cooperate fully with our investigation. Criminal charges for child endangerment can be filed in both magical and muggle courts. As Vernon purpled again, the silencing charm now lifted, Harry tugged hesitantly on Narcissa's sleeve. Where am I going? He asked, fear and hope warring in his voice. Narcissa knelt again, looking directly into Lily Evans' green eyes. You're coming home with me, Harry. I have a son about your age named Draco. We have a large house with gardens and room to play. And I promise you, you'll never sleep in a cupboard again. Harry studied her face carefully, with the wariness of a child who had learned adults rarely kept their promises. Will I have to come back here? Never, Narcissa vowed, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. You'll never set foot in this house again if I have anything to say about it. For the first time, a genuine smile lit Harry's face, transforming him from a wary, broken child into something bright and beautiful. Okay, he whispered. Narcissa stood and held out her hand. After only a moment's hesitation, Harry slipped his small, calloused hand into hers. Malfoy Manor rose like a dark dream against the twilight sky, its spires and gables imposing even to those familiar with magical architecture. To a 6-year-old boy who had spent his life in a suburban cupboard, it must have seemed impossibly vast and terrifying. Harry's hand tightened in Narcissa's as they approached the wrought iron gates, which twisted into serpentine shapes before opening to admit them. It's so big, he whispered, eyes wide behind his broken glasses, which Narcissa had temporarily repaired with a quick spell. It's been in my husband's family for many generations, Narcissa explained. You'll soon learn your way around. The enormous front doors swung open as they approached. Lucius waited in the entrance hall, impeccably dressed in formal robes, his expression carefully neutral as he assessed the small boy clutching his wife's hand. Welcome to Malfoy Manor, Mr. Potter, he said with a slight bow that would have been appropriate for a visiting dignitary, not a child. Harry shrunk against Narcissa's side. Thank you, sir, he managed in a tiny voice. Narcissa shot her husband a warning look over Harry's head. Harry has had a long day, Lucius. Perhaps we could save formalities for tomorrow. Lucius inclined his head slightly. Of course. Dobby. The house elf appeared with a crack that made Harry jump. Master called Dobby. Harry's eyes widened to comical proportions at the sight of the strange creature. What, this is a house elf, Harry, Narcissa explained. Magical families often have them to help maintain their homes and serve the family. Like me at the Dursleys? Harry asked hesitantly. A flash of something, displeasure, perhaps even guilt, crossed Lucius's face. Certainly not, he said firmly. House elves are magical beings who serve by choice and nature. They find fulfillment in their service. You are a wizard, Mr. Potter. A human being. The distinction is significant. Harry didn't look entirely convinced, but he nodded. Dobby, show Mr. Potter to the blue guest suite, Lucius instructed. Ensure he has everything he needs for tonight. Tomorrow we will make more permanent arrangements. Yes, Master. Dobby is honored to serve the great Harry Potter. The elf bowed so low his nose touched the marble floor. Harry Potter defeated the dark, that's enough, Dobby, Narcissa interrupted quickly. Harry is tired and hungry. Please prepare a light meal he can eat in his rooms. Of course, mistress. Right away, mistress. Another small figure appeared in the entrance hall, Draco, dressed in expensive emerald pajamas, his platinum blonde hair nearly white in the chandelier light. "Mother," he called, then stopped abruptly at the sight of Harry. "Who's that?" "Draco, this is Harry Potter," Narcissa said carefully. "He'll be staying with us for some time." Draco's pale eyes widened. "Harry Potter? With the scar?" Harry self-consciously flattened his fringe over his forehead. "Harry, this is our son, Draco," Narcissa continued. "He's about your age." The boys sized each other up with the direct, assessing gaze children use before deciding if someone is friend or foe. "Why are you wearing those clothes?" Draco finally asked, eyeing Harry's oversized, threadbare hand-me-downs with distaste. "They're horrible." "Draco," Lucius reprimanded sharply. "It's okay," Harry said quietly. "They are horrible. They're my cousin's old clothes." Draco wrinkled his nose. "Mother, can't we give him proper clothes? He can't go around Malfoy Manor looking like that." Despite his rudeness, Narcissa felt a surge of pride at her son's instinctive understanding of the situation. "Yes, Draco, we'll be getting Harry new clothes tomorrow. For tonight, perhaps you could lend him some pajamas?" Draco considered this, then nodded imperiously. "I suppose. The green silk ones, not my favorite blue ones." "Very generous," Lucius drawled, though a hint of amusement lightened his stern features. Harry looked utterly bewildered by the exchange. "You're going to give me clothes? New ones?" "Of course," Narcissa said, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "You'll need a complete wardrobe. But first, dinner and rest. You've had quite an ordeal." Harry followed Dobby upstairs, looking back over his shoulder several times as if afraid the Malfoys might vanish if he took his eyes off them. Draco trailed behind, already talking rapidly about the manor and all its wonders. Once the boys were out of earshot, Lucius turned to his wife. "He's smaller than I expected." "Malnutrition," Narcissa said grimly. "The healer will be here first thing tomorrow." "And Dumbledore?" Lucius asked. "He'll have learned of the boy's removal by now." On cue, the manor's ward shimmered, an alert that someone powerful was testing them. "Right on time," Lucius murmured, straightening his robes. "Shall we greet our uninvited guest?" They stepped onto the front terrace just as Albus Dumbledore apparat at the edge of the property, his garish purple robes billowing dramatically, his face set in uncharacteristic anger. "Ah, Headmaster," Lucius called with false cordiality. "To what do we owe this unexpected pleasure? Where is Harry Potter?" Dumbledore demanded, dispensing with his usual twinkling grandfatherly facade. "What have you done, Lucius?" "What have I done?" Lucius repeated incredulously. "I believe the more pertinent question is what you have done, Dumbledore. Leaving a magical child with abusive muggles. Surely even you must recognize that crosses a line." Dumbledore's blue eyes flashed. "Harry Potter must remain with his blood relatives for his own protection. The blood wards were failing due to abuse and neglect," Narcissa interrupted coldly. "As verified by ministry officials and a licensed healer. Or were you unaware that your precious savior was sleeping in a cupboard under the stairs? Being starved? Beaten?" Dumbledore faltered slightly. "I was assured he was being properly cared for." "By whom?" Lucius demanded. "The cat-obsessed squib you planted to spy on him. The one who apparently never bothered to actually check on the boy's welfare." A flicker of guilt crossed Dumbledore's face before his expression hardened again. Whatever mistakes may have been made, Harry must return to his relatives. The protection his mother's sacrifice provides means nothing if he dies from neglect before reaching Hogwarts age, Narcissa cut in. "The right of protection has been invoked, Headmaster. As a daughter of the noble House of Black, I have claimed sanctuary for Harry Potter, a child of magical heritage being harmed by non-magical guardians. The Wisengamot will never approve permanent custody," Dumbledore warned. "Not with your families, associations." "Perhaps not," Lucius conceded with a cold smile. But temporary custody has already been granted by Madame Bones herself. And by the time the full hearing takes place, the wizarding world will know exactly how their savior has been treated under your care. You would use a child as a political pawn? Dumbledore asked, his voice heavy with disappointment. That's rather rich coming from you, Narcissa replied sharply. You left him on a doorstep in November with nothing but a letter, Dumbledore. A doorstep. Then never checked on him for 5 years while he was being systematically abused. The greater good, Dumbledore began. Means nothing to a hungry, beaten child locked in a cupboard, Lucius finished. Even I would not treat a child so callously, headmaster. And I am, by your estimation, a monster. Dumbledore's hand moved subtly toward his wand. I cannot allow Harry Potter to remain here. The Manor wards shimmered more intensely, responding to the threat. Lucius's grip tightened on his cane, the snake-headed handle concealing his wand. Think carefully, Dumbledore, he warned softly. Attacking a pureblood family in their ancestral home to kidnap a child legally placed in their care? Even you couldn't survive that politically. For a tense moment, it seemed Dumbledore might actually attack. Then his shoulders slumped slightly. This isn't over, Lucius. The boy must be protected. And he will be, Narcissa said firmly. From everyone who would harm or use him. Including you. Dumbledore's piercing blue eyes met hers. I hope you understand what you're involving yourself in, Narcissa. Harry Potter's destiny is not yours to determine, she interrupted. Not anymore. With a last penetrating look, Dumbledore disapparated, leaving behind only the lingering sense of magical power and thwarted plans. Lucius released a breath. That went about as expected. He'll call an emergency Wisengamot session, Narcissa predicted, leading the way back inside. Tomorrow, most likely. Then we'd best be prepared. Lucius closed the heavy doors behind them. The boy needs to appear healthy and content by then. Can your healer work miracles overnight? She'll have to, Narcissa said grimly. And we'll need to help Harry understand what's happening. He knows nothing of our world, Lucius. Nothing of who he truly is. Upstairs, they found Harry sitting cross-legged on a bed larger than the Dursleys' entire cupboard, wearing Draco's silk pajamas, which hung properly on his frame despite being slightly too large, while their son explained the moving portraits on the wall with the superior air of someone imparting great wisdom. And this one is my great-great-grandfather Brutus Malfoy, who wrote for the Warlocks. Draco broke off at his parents' entrance. Father. I was telling Potter about our ancestors. I see, Lucius said, eyebrow raised. Perhaps that history lesson can wait for another day. It's late, and Mr. Potter has had a trying day. Harry looked up at them, still visibly overwhelmed but with a cautious hope in his green eyes. Is this really my room? All of it? For now, Narcissa confirmed, sitting carefully on the edge of the massive four-poster bed. How do you like it? It's bigger than the Dursleys' whole upstairs, Harry said, wide-eyed. And Dobby brought me chicken and vegetables and treacle tart and said I can have more if I want it. The simple wonder in his voice at being offered adequate food made something fierce and protective surge in Narcissa's chest. You can have whatever you like to eat, Harry, she promised. Whenever you're hungry, you need only ask. Harry looked doubtful. Even between meals? Even then, Lucius confirmed, his expression softening marginally at the child's obvious disbelief. Harry, Narcissa said gently, tomorrow a healer, that's like a magical doctor, will come to check you over and help you feel better. And a man from the ministry wants to talk to you about the Dursleys. Would that be all right? Harry tensed. Will I have to go back to them? No, all three Malfoys said simultaneously, surprising even themselves with their vehemence. No, Narcissa repeated more softly. But there may be a disagreement about where you should live now. Some people think you should stay with us. Others may have different ideas. Like who? Harry asked nervously. Like the old man with the long beard who just tried to get through our wards, Draco supplied helpfully. I saw him from the window. That was Dumbledore, wasn't it, Father? Lucius nodded. Indeed. Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He was the one who placed you with the Dursleys, Harry. Harry's face fell. Then he wants me to go back. He thinks you're safer there, Narcissa explained carefully. But we disagree. And for now, at least, you'll stay with us while the Ministry decides what's best for you. Can't I decide? Harry asked plaintively. I want to stay here. I don't want to go back to the cupboard. Narcissa squeezed his small hand. We'll do everything in our power to ensure you never have to, Harry. I promise. As the exhausted child finally drifted to sleep in a real bed for perhaps the first time in his memory, Narcissa stood at the doorway watching his chest rise and fall, marveling at the strange turn of events that had led her to become the protector of James and Lily Potter's son. Lucius joined her, his expression unreadable. The emergency Wisengamot session has been called for 10 tomorrow morning, he said quietly. Fudge just fire called. Our presence is strongly requested. Then we'll be ready, Narcissa replied, her gaze still fixed on the sleeping child. Dumbledore has made a grave mistake, Lucius. He's so focused on magical threats to the boy that he overlooked the mundane cruelty right under his nose. A mistake we can use, Lucius agreed pragmatically. Not just use, Narcissa corrected, turning to face her husband. A mistake we will ensure is never repeated. Harry Potter may have been born a Potter, but he will be protected as a Malfoy now. In his sleep, Harry turned, his lightning scar visible against his pale forehead, a reminder of all he had already survived. And all that was yet to come. Chapter 2, Blood and Magic. A month could change everything. Harry stood at the enormous bay window in his bedroom, his actual bedroom, not a cupboard, watching peacocks strut across the manicured lawn of Malfoy Manor. His reflection showed a different boy than the one who'd arrived here 4 weeks ago. His cheeks had filled out. His eyes looked brighter behind new, properly fitted glasses. The constant tension in his shoulders had eased, though it hadn't disappeared completely. Old habits die hard, especially when they're beaten into you. Harry still flinched sometimes when someone moved too quickly. Still hoarded food in his pockets after meals. Still woke up some mornings confused about where he was, expecting to see the underside of stairs above him instead of an ornate canopy bed. But he was learning. Learning that asking questions didn't earn a smack. Learning that meals came regularly, 3 times a day plus snacks. Learning that magic was real and wonderful and part of who he was. Potter. You coming to breakfast or what? Draco's voice carried from the hallway, followed by the boy himself pushing open Harry's door without knocking. Mother says if you're not down in 5 minutes, I don't have to wait to start eating. Harry turned from the window. Sorry, I was just thinking. You do that too much, Draco said with the casual confidence of someone who'd never had reason to carefully analyze his surroundings for danger. Come on, the elves made crepes. Harry followed Draco through the manor's twisting corridors. He'd finally stopped getting lost on the way to basic places, his room, the dining room, the main parlor. The rest of the massive house remained a confusing labyrinth. What's after breakfast? Harry asked. The structured routine of the Malfoy household had been strange at first, but now he found comfort in knowing what came next. Lessons with Mother until lunch, Draco recited. Then flying if the weather holds. Harry perked up. Flying had quickly become his favorite activity. The pure freedom of being on a broomstick, controlling his own movement through the sky, was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. And Father wants to test your magic again, Draco added with a slight edge to his voice. Harry pretended not to notice the jealousy. Lucius Malfoy had been monitoring Harry's magical development with increasing interest. Harry didn't particularly like these sessions, they reminded him too much of being examined like a specimen, but he endured them to keep the peace. The breakfast room glowed with morning light, its tall windows facing east to catch the sunrise. Narcissa Malfoy already sat at the table, elegant as always in pale blue robes, reading correspondence while sipping tea. She looked up with a smile when the boys entered. "Good morning, Harry, Draco. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, thank you," Harry said automatically. He still couldn't quite believe how kind she was to him. In his first week, he'd been constantly waiting for the mask to drop, for the Malfoys to reveal they were just as cruel as the Dursleys. But it hadn't happened. "Sit, eat," Narcissa encouraged. "We have another hearing at the Ministry this afternoon, so we need to leave by 1 o'clock." Harry's stomach tightened. The custody hearings were stressful, even though Mrs. Malfoy had explained he wouldn't be sent back to the Dursleys no matter what happened. Apparently some old wizard named Dumbledore was fighting to have him placed elsewhere. "Does Harry have to go this time?" Draco asked, helping himself to a crepe and liberally pouring syrup over it. "Not today," Narcissa assured them. "This is just a preliminary hearing about evidence." Harry relaxed slightly and reached for the pitcher of pumpkin juice, a wizarding drink he'd grown to like. As he poured, his hand trembled slightly, sending an orange splash onto the pristine tablecloth. "I'm sorry," he gasped, immediately reaching for a napkin. "I didn't mean to, it's fine, Harry," Narcissa said calmly. "Accidents happen." But Harry was already frantically dabbing at the stain, panic rising in his chest. Uncle Vernon would have, the memory of a backhand across his face for spilling milk flooded him, and suddenly the juice stain wasn't just disappearing into the napkin, the entire tablecloth began changing color, shifting from white to orange before their eyes. "Harry," Narcissa said, her voice still perfectly composed. "Look at what you're doing." Harry froze, finally noticing the transformation spreading across the table. "I'm sorry," he cried again, dropping the napkin as if burned. "I didn't mean to, I don't know how to stop it." "It's quite all right," Narcissa assured him, though Draco was staring open-mouthed at the now completely orange tablecloth. "This is accidental magic. It's normal for young wizards." "But I ruined the tablecloth," Harry whispered, shrinking in his chair. "Ruined? Hardly." Narcissa waved her wand casually, and the cloth reverted to its original white. "See? No harm done." Harry stared in amazement, both at the easy fix and at the fact that no one was yelling at him. At the Dursleys, any hint of freakishness would have earned him a week in the cupboard. "Can you teach me how to do that?" he asked hesitantly. "When you're older and have your own wand, certainly," Narcissa smiled. "For now, don't worry about accidental magic. It's a sign your magical core is developing properly." "I never turn whole tablecloths orange," Draco muttered, stabbing at his crepe. "No, but you did turn all the peacocks purple last summer," Narcissa reminded him with a raised eyebrow. Draco flushed. "That was on purpose." "Was it now?" Lucius Malfoy's smooth voice came from the doorway as he entered, already dressed in formal black robes. "How interesting. I recall you insisting it was an accident when the time came for consequences." Harry tensed automatically at the man's arrival. Mr. Malfoy was harder to read than his wife. Sometimes he looked at Harry with calculation, sometimes with puzzlement, occasionally with something like reluctant respect. But never with the warmth Narcissa showed. "Good morning, Father," Draco said, sitting up straighter. "Good morning, sir," Harry echoed. Lucius nodded to them both, taking his place at the head of the table. "I understand we had a magical incident." "Just a color-changing charm," Narcissa explained. "Quite impressive control, actually. The entire tablecloth changed uniformly." "Indeed?" Lucius studied Harry with renewed interest. "Perhaps we should advance today's testing to this morning, before the ministry hearing." Harry's heart sank. He'd been looking forward to lessons with Mrs. Malfoy, who was teaching him and Draco about magical history and basic theory. Mr. Malfoy's testing usually involved trying to prompt Harry into performing magic on command, something he found impossible and frustrating. Lucius, Narcissa said with a hint of warning in her voice, we discussed not overwhelming Harry with too many expectations too quickly. A silent communication passed between the adults that Harry couldn't decipher. Finally, Lucius inclined his head slightly. Very well. This afternoon will suffice. Breakfast resumed with Draco chattering about the latest racing broom he coveted and Lucius discussing ministry politics with Narcissa. Harry ate quietly, still amazed at the variety and quality of food he was allowed. The house elves had quickly learned his preferences, always ensuring treacle tart appeared at least once a day. After breakfast, Narcissa led the boys to the Manor's library for lessons. Today they were studying magical family trees, with Draco proudly pointing out the Malfoy line stretching back centuries. And that's my mother's family, the Blacks, he explained, indicating another ancient lineage. They're one of the Sacred 28 too. What's the Sacred 28? Harry asked, staring at the moving portraits of stern-looking wizards and witches who occasionally nodded at him from the pages. The 28 truly pure-blood families in Britain, Draco explained with importance. Families that have kept their bloodlines purely magical. Was my family one of them? Harry asked hopefully. Draco hesitated, glancing at his mother. The Potters were an old and respected family, Narcissa said carefully, though not counted among the 28. Your father came from a long line of purebloods, but your mother was Muggleborn. Muggleborn? Harry repeated the unfamiliar term. A witch or wizard born to non-magical parents, Narcissa explained. Your mother, Lily, was exceptionally talented despite her background. The "despite" didn't escape Harry's notice. He was learning that the Malfoys and their friends viewed non-magical people, Muggles, with a mixture of disdain and distrust. So I'm not pure blood? Harry asked, trying to understand where he fit. You're what we call half-blood, Narcissa explained. One magical and one Muggleborn parent. It's a perfectly respectable heritage, Harry. Draco sniffed slightly but didn't contradict his mother. Harry had noticed that Draco sometimes repeated phrases that sounded like they came straight from his father, about blood purity and proper wizarding families, but never when Narcissa was nearby. Now, Narcissa continued smoothly, let's look at how magical family alliances have shaped wizarding government through the centuries. The lesson proceeded, with Harry absorbing as much as he could about this new world. He'd learned more in a month with the Malfoys than in his entire previous life with the Dursleys, who discouraged questions and punished curiosity. After lunch, as promised, they headed outside for flying lessons. This was when Harry felt most equal to Draco. On a broomstick, his lack of magical upbringing didn't matter. Race you to the far oak and back. Draco challenged, mounting his training broom. Harry grinned, the first genuine smile of the day. You're on. They kicked off from the ground, and Harry felt the familiar rush of joy as the broom responded to his slightest movement. Flying seemed to bypass all his thinking and connect directly to his instincts. He leaned forward, the wind rushing through his hair, and soon overtook Draco despite the other boy's head start. Not fair. Draco shouted as Harry reached the oak tree first, executing a tight turn around it. You've got longer arms. Harry laughed, the sound startling him slightly. Laughter had been rare in his previous life. Excuses, excuses. He slowed to let Draco catch up, and they raced neck and neck back toward the starting point. At the last moment, Harry pulled up to avoid collision, allowing Draco to cross the imaginary finish line first. Ha! I won. Draco crowed, circling victoriously. Harry didn't mind. He'd learned that Draco needed to win sometimes, and it cost Harry nothing to let him. Besides, the pure joy of flight was reward enough. From the terrace, Lucius watched the boys with a calculating expression. He's a natural flyer, he observed to Narcissa, who had joined him before preparing to leave for the ministry. James Potter's blood, no doubt. He's finding his confidence, Narcissa agreed. Though he still flinches when Draco moves too quickly near him. Lucius's mouth tightened. The Muggles have much to answer for. I find it interesting that you're more upset about Harry's treatment by Muggles than by the Dark Lord's attempt to kill him as an infant, Narcissa observed shrewdly. The Dark Lord had his reasons, Lucius replied automatically, then frowned slightly as if reconsidering his own words. But a child is a child. Magical children should be treasured, not broken. Narcissa studied her husband. In the month since Harry's arrival, subtle shifts had occurred in Lucius's attitude. His initial reluctance had given way to academic interest in Harry's magical potential, and now something that almost resembled protectiveness was emerging. "We should prepare for the hearing," she said finally. "Dumbledore will have gathered his forces." Lucius nodded, his gaze still following Harry's fluid movements on the broomstick. "Let him try. The old laws are on our side." The Ministry of Magic's family court chamber had been expanded to accommodate the unusual interest in the case. Narcissa sat beside Lucius at the respondents' table, their solicitor Grimclaw between them. Across the aisle, Albus Dumbledore conferred quietly with a Ministry Child Welfare Witch and his own legal representative. Amelia Bones presided, her monocle firmly in place as she reviewed the scrolls before her. "This preliminary hearing will address the evidence regarding the welfare and placement of the minor wizard, Harry James Potter," she announced, her voice magically amplified to reach the crowded gallery. Journalists from the Daily Prophet scribbled furiously. The custody battle for the boy who lived had become the biggest story in Wizarding Britain, though the Malfoys had thus far managed to keep Harry himself away from the public eye. "Headmaster Dumbledore," Bones continued, "you have filed an objection to the emergency removal and temporary placement order. Please state your grounds." Dumbledore rose, resplendent in midnight blue robes scattered with silver stars. "Thank you, Madam Bones. While I do not dispute that Harry Potter's Muggle relatives failed in certain aspects of his care, I maintain that his residence with blood relatives provides essential magical protection that cannot be replicated elsewhere. These protections being the blood wards you established." Bones clarified. "Precisely. When Lily Potter sacrificed herself to save her son, she invoked ancient magic, protection through love and blood. This protection extends through her blood relatives, specifically her sister Petunia Desley. While at his aunt's residence, Harry cannot be touched by those who would harm him." "Yet he was being harmed," Narcissa interjected coldly. "By the very people meant to protect him." "Mrs. Malfoy," Bones warned, "you'll have your turn to speak." "My apologies," Narcissa said, not sounding remotely sorry. Dumbledore continued, "The magical threat to Harry Potter cannot be overstated. Lord Voldemort's followers," here he paused, glancing meaningfully at Lucius, "remain at large. The blood protection is his strongest defense." "And yet," Bones said dryly, "according to the evidence gathered, these supposedly crucial blood wards were found to be significantly weakened due to the lack of care and affection from the Desleys. Gringotts curse breakers confirmed this in their report." Dumbledore frowned. "The wards require proximity, not affection. The report specifically cites absence of familial love and protection undermining the magical foundation," Bones read aloud. "Are you contradicting the expertise of senior curse breakers, Headmaster?" Mutters rippled through the courtroom. Dumbledore's frown deepened. "I am merely stating that the wards, even weakened, offer protection that cannot be found elsewhere." "Let's move on to the welfare evidence," Bones said, setting aside one scroll and unrolling another. The physical examination of Harry Potter revealed chronic malnutrition, vitamin deficiencies, improperly healed fractures of the right radius and 3 ribs, untreated myopia, and numerous contusions in various stages of healing. The psychological assessment indicated signs of prolonged emotional abuse and neglect. The gallery broke into horrified whispers. Narcissa kept her expression composed, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped her wand beneath the table. Furthermore, Bones continued relentlessly, the boy was found sleeping in a cupboard under the stairs, with evidence this had been his primary living space for approximately 4 years. He was performing domestic labor inappropriate for his age, being punished for accidental magic, and was deliberately misinformed about his parents and heritage. Dumbledore's serene mask slipped slightly. I was not aware of the extent, and that is precisely the problem, Headmaster, Bones interrupted. You placed the child there and failed to adequately monitor his welfare for 5 years. I had a trusted observer in the neighborhood, Dumbledore countered. Ah yes, Arabella Figg, Bones nodded. Who has provided a sworn statement that she reported concerns about Harry's treatment to you on multiple occasions. Would you care to address that? A flash of genuine surprise crossed Dumbledore's face. I received reports of the boy being undervalued, perhaps, but nothing suggesting abuse of this magnitude. How convenient, Lucius murmured, just loud enough to be heard. Bones shuffled her papers. Mrs. Malfoy, please present your case for continued custody. Narcissa rose gracefully. Harry Potter has been in our care for 1 month. In that time, he has gained appropriate weight, his injuries have been healed, his vision corrected with proper glasses, and he has begun receiving the magical education befitting his heritage. He is forming positive relationships and showing signs of recovery from his previous mistreatment. And your qualification to care for the boy who lived? Bones prompted. As a daughter of the noble and most ancient House of Black, I have invoked the right of protection for a magical child endangered by those without magic, Narcissa stated formally. This ancient right predates the ministry itself and has never been successfully challenged. Additionally, my husband and I are raising our son Draco, who is Harry's age, in a stable, nurturing environment with all the resources necessary for proper magical development. Your husband's political history does not concern you regarding Harry Potter's safety? Bones asked delicately. Narcissa's smile was razor-sharp. My husband was cleared of all charges by this very ministry, Madam Bones. Unless you're suggesting the Wisengamot erred in that judgment. Bones didn't rise to the bait. And what alternative protection can you offer to replace the blood wards? Our solicitor will address that question, Narcissa deferred, nodding to Grimclaw. The goblin rose, his sharp teeth gleaming in the courtroom light. The most ancient and noble House of Black has protection rituals that rival any blood ward. Additionally, Gringotts has prepared a warding scheme for Malfoy Manor specifically calibrated to Harry Potter's magical signature. Combined with the existing ancestral protections on the Malfoy estate, these measures would create a security matrix superior to the failing blood wards at Privet Drive. At considerable expense, I imagine, Dumbledore commented. The Malfoy vaults can accommodate the cost, Lucius said smoothly. Harry Potter's safety is, after all, priceless. The veiled reference to the Dursleys' complaints about the financial burden of raising Harry wasn't lost on anyone. I'd like to call a witness, Dumbledore announced suddenly. Someone who can speak to Harry's best interests from an unbiased perspective. Bones gestured permission, and to Narcissa's surprise, Minerva McGonagall entered the courtroom, her tartan robes and severe bun instantly recognizable. Professor McGonagall, Dumbledore greeted warmly, you were present the night Harry Potter was placed with his relatives, were you not? I was, McGonagall confirmed, her Scottish brogue more pronounced than usual. And you are familiar with the Malfoy family? I taught both Lucius and Narcissa at Hogwarts, she acknowledged with a tight nod. In your professional opinion, where would Harry Potter be safest and best cared for? McGonagall's lips thinned to a nearly invisible line. I cannot speak to the Malfoys' capabilities as guardians to Harry specifically. But given their history, Dumbledore prompted. Given their history, McGonagall interrupted firmly, I would have concerns. However, she continued before Dumbledore could look too satisfied, I must also state for the record that I objected strenuously to placing Harry with the Dursley family the very night you left him there, Albus. Dumbledore blinked in surprise. I sat watching those muggles all day, McGonagall continued, seemingly unable to stop now that she'd started. I told you they were the worst sort of muggles imaginable. That they would never understand him. That you shouldn't leave a magical child with people who despised magic. Minerva, Dumbledore began. I told you not to leave him on a doorstep in November with nothing but a letter, she pressed on, her voice rising slightly. A letter, Albus. And now we learn he was kept in a cupboard. Starved. Beaten. I hold myself partly responsible for not insisting more strongly, for not checking on the boy myself. The courtroom had gone utterly silent. I cannot in good conscience recommend returning Harry to the Dursleys, McGonagall finished. And while I have reservations about the Malfoy household, I have personally reviewed the medical reports of Harry's condition upon removal from Privet Drive, and I cannot imagine any environment being worse than what he endured there. Dumbledore looked genuinely stunned by this betrayal from his deputy. Thank you, Professor McGonagall, Bones said when it became clear Dumbledore had no further questions. Your candor is appreciated. The rest of the hearing proceeded with technical discussions of wards, protection spells, and legal precedents. Throughout it all, Narcissa maintained her composure, though her mind continually drifted to Harry back at the Manor, wondering if he was having a good day, if he'd enjoyed his flying lesson, if he was still having nightmares. When they finally returned home late that afternoon, they found Harry and Draco in the drawing room playing Exploding Snap, supervised by Draco's godfather, Severus Snape, who looked distinctly uncomfortable with his babysitting role. Mother. Father. Draco called when they entered. Uncle Severus has been teaching us about potions. How educational, Lucius drawled, exchanging a look with Severus that suggested this hadn't been the original plan. The boys were energetic after flying, Severus explained stiffly. I thought channeling that energy into academic pursuits would be preferable to allowing them to destroy the East Wing. We weren't going to destroy anything, Draco protested. We were just practicing dueling. With what wands, precisely? Narcissa asked, arching an eyebrow. We used sticks, Harry admitted sheepishly. But then Draco's caught fire somehow. Accidental magic, Severus supplied. Quite powerful, actually. Narcissa hung her cloak on a waiting house elf's outstretched arms. Thank you for watching them, Severus. Would you care to stay for dinner? Snape looked as if he'd rather drink poison. Unfortunately, I must return to Hogwarts. Dumbledore will be expecting a report. About the boys? Lucius asked sharply. About your home in general, Severus clarified. He's quite fixated on Potter's living conditions. Harry shrank slightly in his seat. Is he going to make me leave? No, Harry, Narcissa assured him quickly. The hearing went well today. You'll be staying with us. For how long? Harry pressed. The adults exchanged glances. We're working to make it permanent, Lucius said carefully. But these matters take time. And in the meantime, you're not going anywhere, Narcissa added firmly. Harry nodded, but the worry didn't leave his eyes. That night, as the household settled into evening routines, Narcissa found herself drawn to Harry's room, some maternal instinct telling her all was not well. She knocked gently on his door. Come in, came the small voice. Harry sat cross-legged on his bed, an untouched glass of milk beside him, staring at a moving photograph Narcissa had given him of James and Lily Potter dancing at their wedding. Shouldn't you be asleep? She asked gently. Harry shrugged. I was thinking. About what? About why that Dumbledore man wants me so badly, Harry said, looking up with eyes too serious for a 6-year-old. Draco says it's because I'm famous for defeating some dark wizard when I was a baby. But I don't remember doing that. I don't even know how I did it. Narcissa sat carefully on the edge of his bed. It's complicated, Harry. Dumbledore believes you're safer with your mother's blood relatives because of magical protection your mother created when she died to save you. But they hate me, Harry said simply. How can I be safe with people who hate me? The straightforward wisdom of children, Narcissa thought. That's exactly our argument. Harry studied her face. Do you hate me? Because of this dark wizard I supposedly defeated? Narcissa felt a pang in her chest. Of course the boy would wonder. He'd been in their home long enough to hear snippets of conversation, to pick up on undercurrents. "No, Harry, I don't hate you," she said firmly. "When I found you in that garden, I knew nothing of your past mattered compared to how you were being treated. A child is a child. But Mr. Malfoy, my husband's views are evolving," Narcissa said carefully. "But you need not worry about his feelings toward you. In our world, in pureblood families like ours, providing protection to a magical child in need is considered honorable." Harry considered this. "I still have nightmares about going back to the Dursleys. Would you like me to show you something that might help?" Narcissa offered. Harry nodded cautiously. Narcissa drew her wand and conjured a small ball of soft blue light that hovered above her palm. "This is a watchlight charm. My mother used it when I had nightmares as a child." She guided the light to float above Harry's bed. "It will stay lit all night and keep bad dreams away." Harry reached out, passing his fingers through the cool light. "It's pretty. If you have a nightmare anyway, you can call for Dobby or come find me," Narcissa added. "No one will be angry if you need help in the night, Harry." The simple reassurance seemed to relax something in the boy's shoulders. "Thank you, Mrs. Malfoy." "You're welcome, Harry." She hesitated, then added, "You may call me Narcissa, if you wish. Or Aunt Narcissa, perhaps." Harry's eyes widened slightly. "Really? Really?" She smiled and stood. "Now drink your milk and try to sleep. Tomorrow is another day." As she turned to leave, Harry's small voice stopped her. "Aunt Narcissa." The title sent an unexpected warmth through her. "Yes, Harry. I'm glad you found me in the garden." "So am I, Harry," she replied softly. "So am I." The formal custody hearing arrived 2 weeks later. Unlike the preliminary hearing, Harry's presence was required, and the boy sat nervously between Narcissa and Lucius, dressed in custom-made robes of deep green that complemented his eyes. Draco had been left at home with Severus, much to his vocal displeasure. The Wisengamot chamber was packed to capacity. Every member had insisted on attending, and the public gallery overflowed with journalists and spectators eager to glimpse the boy who lived. Cornelius Fudge presided, clearly relishing his role at the center of such a high-profile case. "This full Wisengamot hearing will determine the permanent magical guardianship of Harry James Potter," he announced importantly. Albus Dumbledore, as the boy's magical guardian appointed after the deaths of James and Lily Potter, has petitioned to overturn the emergency placement with the Malfoy family and establish alternative guardianship. Harry pressed closer to Narcissa's side. She placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Mrs. Malfoy has invoked the ancient right of protection as a daughter of the noble and most ancient House of Black," Fudge continued. "This hearing will determine if this claim supersedes Headmaster Dumbledore's prior guardianship." Dumbledore rose, his expression grave. "Members of the Wisengamot, I stand before you deeply concerned for Harry Potter's future. While the Malfoy family has undoubtedly provided material comfort these past weeks, we must consider the greater context." He launched into a carefully worded speech about blood protections, Harry's unique position in the wizarding world, and veiled references to Lucius's past associations. Harry listened with growing confusion and distress. "He's saying I have to go back, isn't he?" he whispered to Narcissa. "No," she whispered back firmly. "He's trying to have you placed with a family he controls. Not the Dursleys, but someone who would raise you according to his plans." Harry frowned. "But I want to stay with you." "And we want you to stay with us," Narcissa assured him. "Our solicitor will present our case next." Grimclaw didn't disappoint. The goblin systematically dismantled Dumbledore's arguments, presenting evidence of the Malfoys' care for Harry, the improved security measures at the manor, and most damning of all, the complete failure of Dumbledore's previous guardianship arrangements. "The facts are unambiguous," Grimclaw concluded. Under Albus Dumbledore's guardianship, Harry Potter was neglected, abused, malnourished, and kept ignorant of his heritage. Under the Malfoys' care, he has thrived physically, emotionally, and magically. The ancient rite of protection was created precisely for such circumstances, and no wizard, however powerful or well-intentioned, has the right to return a magical child to harmful conditions. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Dumbledore's expression remained impassive, but Narcissa noted the tightening around his eyes. "We will now hear testimony directly from young Mr. Potter," Fudge announced, looking almost gleeful at the drama unfolding in his courtroom. "Harry, my boy, please approach the witness chair." Harry looked terrified at the prospect of speaking before the massive crowd, but Narcissa gave his hand a gentle squeeze. "Just tell the truth," she advised quietly. "Your feelings matter." Harry walked to the witness chair with his chin up, though Narcissa could see his hands trembling. Once seated, he seemed impossibly small against the ancient wooden chair. "Now then, Harry," Fudge began with forced joviality, "we just need to ask you a few simple questions. How have you been treated at Malfoy Manor?" Harry glanced at Narcissa before answering. "Very well, sir. I have my own room, a big one. I get 3 meals a day plus snacks. No one hits me or locks me in cupboards. And I'm learning about magic and my parents. And how do you feel about Mr. and Mrs. Malfoy?" Harry considered this carefully. "Mrs. Aunt Narcissa is very kind to me. She helps me when I have nightmares and teaches me things. Mr. Malfoy is strict, but fair. He never punishes me for asking questions or for accidental magic." Dumbledore leaned forward. "Harry, my boy, do you understand that there are other wizarding families who would welcome you? Families who were close friends with your parents?" Harry's brow furrowed. "Where were they before?" "When I was with the Dursleys." A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Dumbledore actually winced. "There were complications that prevented," he began. "Did they know how the Dursleys treated me?" Harry pressed, a hint of anger breaking through his nervousness. "I don't believe they were aware of the specifics, but you knew," Harry said, his voice small but clear. Professor McGonagall said you knew the Dursleys hated magic. Why did you leave me there?" Dumbledore looked genuinely pained. "For your protection, Harry. Sometimes we must endure difficulties for the greater good. I don't want to go with someone who thinks cupboards and no food is for my own good," Harry said firmly. "I want to stay with Aunt Narcissa and Uncle Lucius. And Draco," he added as an afterthought. Narcissa felt an unexpected lump in her throat at hearing Lucius included in Harry's list. She glanced at her husband and saw his face had lost some of its hardness as he regarded the small, brave figure in the witness chair. After Harry's testimony, the hearing devolved into technical legal arguments. Grimclaw invoked ancient precedents and bloodline magics, while Dumbledore's solicitor emphasized the extraordinary circumstances surrounding Harry's case. The debate grew heated, with Wizengamot members taking sides and arguing amongst themselves. Finally, Fudge called for order. "It seems we have reached an impasse. In such cases, magical arbitration may be appropriate. What precisely do you suggest, Minister?" Dumbledore inquired, a note of wariness in his voice. Fudge looked to the court records keeper. "The ancient right of protection invoked by Mrs. Malfoy includes provisions for magical adjudication, does it not?" The elderly witch consulted a massive tome. "Indeed, Minister. When competing claims exist, the magic itself can judge the sincerity and suitability of the protection offered. Such rituals are rarely performed in modern times," Dumbledore objected. "But they remain valid under our oldest laws," Lucius countered smoothly. "We welcome magical arbitration. Let magic itself judge who can best protect Harry Potter." The Wizengamot erupted in excited discussion. Old magics that judged intent were deeply respected in wizarding culture, even by those who normally opposed the Malfoys' traditionalist views. "Very well," Fudge declared after conferring with several senior members. "The ritual will be performed here, before the full Wizengamot, 3 days hence. Both parties will present their case directly to the magic of the right. As they left the chamber, Harry looked up at Narcissa with worried eyes. What happens in this ritual? Nothing to fear, she assured him. The ancient magic will simply evaluate our intentions toward you and judge whether we can provide the protection you need. But what if it chooses Dumbledore? Harry pressed. Lucius answered, surprising both Harry and Narcissa. Then we continue fighting through other means. The Malfoys do not surrender what is theirs, Harry. And make no mistake, you are under our protection now. The possessive declaration seemed to comfort Harry, who nodded solemnly. Back at the manor, Draco pounced on them the moment they arrived, demanding details. What happened? Do we get to keep Potter? Did Dumbledore try to kidnap him again? Draco, Lucius chided, though without real heat. Show some decorum. We're to participate in a magical judgment ritual in 3 days, Narcissa explained, helping Harry remove his formal cloak. The oldest magics will determine Harry's guardianship. Draco's eyes widened. A real judgment ritual? Like in the old stories? Indeed, Lucius confirmed. Your mother will need to prepare. Such magic requires significant spiritual and magical readiness. What about you, father? Draco asked. A shadow crossed Lucius's face. The dark mark on my arm may complicate my participation. Your mother will represent our family. The magic will judge my intentions toward Harry, Narcissa explained to both boys. My sincere desire to protect him. But you do want to protect him, Draco said with childish confidence. You got all angry when you saw how those muggles treated him. You said no child deserves that, even if he is Potter. Narcissa smiled faintly. Yes, I did say that. Then you'll win, Draco declared with the absolute certainty of a child. Magic knows when you mean things. That night, as the boys slept, Narcissa found Lucius in his study, surrounded by ancient texts on protection rituals. You're concerned, she observed, closing the door behind her. Lucius didn't look up. The ritual will probe your deepest intentions, Narcissa. Your true feelings toward the boy. I'm aware. And are you prepared for what it might reveal? He asked, finally meeting her gaze. When we began this, it was partly strategic. A political move to gain influence over the boy who lived. It was never only that, Narcissa corrected quietly. Not for me. No, Lucius agreed after a moment. Not entirely. But our history, our allegiances, will not matter if my intent to protect him is genuine, Narcissa finished. And it is, Lucius. Whatever else we may be, whatever we once supported, I will not see a magical child abused. And Harry. She paused, searching for words. Harry deserves better than what life has given him so far. Lucius studied her face. You've grown attached to him. As have you, though you're loath to admit it, Narcissa challenged with a slight smile. I've seen how you watch him during flying practice. How you took extra care explaining magical customs to him yesterday. He's an intelligent child, Lucius said defensively. Surprisingly so, given his upbringing. And his magical potential is considerable. Narcissa hummed noncommittally. And the fact that he now calls you Uncle Lucius has nothing to do with your softening attitude? A reluctant smile tugged at Lucius's mouth. It is, unexpectedly gratifying. The ritual will judge me worthy, Narcissa said confidently. Because I am. 3 days later, the Wisengamot chamber had been transformed. The usual seating had been rearranged to form a circle, with an open space in the center where ancient runes had been etched into the stone floor. Torches burned with magical fire of various colors, and the air thrummed with old power. Harry stood beside Narcissa, wide-eyed at the spectacle. It feels different in here, he whispered. Like the air is thick. Old magic, Narcissa explained softly. Magic from before wands and incantations, when intention and blood carried the power. Across the circle, Dumbledore watched them, his usual twinkling geniality replaced by somber intensity. The Ritual Master, an ancient wizard from the Department of Mysteries, approached the center of the circle. "We gather to invoke the judgment of the ancient rite of protection," he intoned, his voice surprisingly strong. "Magic itself will evaluate the competing claims and judge the truest protector for the magical child, Harry James Potter." He beckoned to Narcissa and Dumbledore. "The claimants will step forward. The child will stand at the center point." Harry gave Narcissa a frightened look. "It's all right," she assured him. "Just stand where they tell you and answer truthfully if asked any questions." Harry nodded bravely and walked to the center of the runic circle, which began to glow faintly beneath his feet. Narcissa and Dumbledore took positions at opposite sides. "Extend your wands over the child," the Ritual Master instructed. They complied, the tips of their wands meeting above Harry's head. "State your claim and intent," the Master commanded. Dumbledore spoke first. "I, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, claim guardianship of Harry James Potter by right of magical executorship of his parents' will. I intend to protect him from those who would harm him, to guide his magical development, and to ensure he fulfills the destiny foretold for him." A pulse of blue light traveled from Dumbledore's wand to hover over Harry. "I, Narcissa Black Malfoy, claim guardianship of Harry James Potter by right of the ancient rite of protection of House Black. I intend to shield him from harm, to nurture his magical abilities, to provide him the knowledge of his heritage, and to give him the childhood he deserves, one of safety, learning, and care." A silver light emerged from her wand, meeting the blue above Harry's head. The two lights swirled together, neither overtaking the other. "The magic seeks deeper truth," the Ritual Master announced. "Blood must speak to intention." Without hesitation, Narcissa pricked her finger with a small silver knife provided by the Master, allowing 3 drops of blood to fall onto the runes beneath her feet. Dumbledore did the same. The runes flared brightly, and the competing lights above Harry intensified, battling for dominance. Harry's face showed discomfort but not pain as the magic swirled around him. "The child's blood must join to seek resonance," the Master intoned. Harry looked uncertainly at Narcissa, who nodded reassuringly. With surprising steadiness for a 6-year-old, he accepted the ritual knife and pricked his own finger, allowing blood to fall onto the central rune. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The silver light from Narcissa's wand flared brilliantly, overwhelming the blue from Dumbledore's. The runes connecting Narcissa and Harry blazed with golden fire, while those between Dumbledore and the boy flickered erratically. "The magic has judged," the Ritual Master declared. "The blood and intent of Narcissa Black Malfoy show stronger protective resonance with Harry James Potter." Dumbledore's face showed genuine shock. "That's not possible," he murmured. "The prophecy, the ritual has spoken," the Master said firmly. "Magic itself has judged the Black family protection to be in greater harmony with the child's needs." Harry broke protocol by running to Narcissa, wrapping his arms around her waist. She placed a protective hand on his head, feeling the magic still tingling between them. Fudge, looking slightly dazed by the powerful magical display, cleared his throat. "Well, that seems decisive. Temporary guardianship is confirmed to Narcissa Malfoy, with a 6-month probationary period before permanent status is considered." "Minister," Dumbledore began, "there are factors at play beyond this ritual. Magic has spoken." Albus, cut in Augusta Longbottom, her vulture hat quivering with indignation. "Even you cannot dispute an ancient judgment ritual. The law and magic are clear." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the Wizengamot. Magical arbitration was rarely challenged, even by the chief warlock. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Dumbledore approached them, his usual grandfatherly mask back in place. "Mrs. Malfoy, I hope you understand the responsibility you've undertaken. Harry is not just any child." "I'm well aware, Headmaster," Narcissa replied coolly. Dumbledore bent slightly to address Harry directly. "Harry, my boy, if you ever need anything, anything at all, you need only call my name." Help at Hogwarts will always be given to those who ask for it. Harry, still pressed against Narcissa's side, nodded politely but said nothing. We should be going, Lucius intervened smoothly. Harry has had quite enough excitement for one day. As they left the ministry, reporters shouted questions and flashbulbs popped, but Lucius's intimidating presence cleared a path to the Fleur network. Soon they were stepping into the familiar entrance hall of Malfoy Manor, where Draco waited impatiently with Severus. Well? Draco demanded. What happened? Did the magic choose us? It did, Narcissa confirmed with a smile. Harry will be staying with us, at least for the foreseeable future. Draco tried to look nonchalant, but couldn't quite hide his pleased expression. Well, that's good, I suppose. It would have been boring without him now. Harry grinned at the backhanded acceptance. You would have missed me, admit it. Would not, Draco retorted automatically. Would too. Boys, Narcissa interjected before the childish argument could escalate. Why don't you go find Dobby for some celebratory hot chocolate in the garden room? They raced off together, their bickering already shifting to excited chatter about what they might do tomorrow. Interesting developments, Severus observed once the boys were out of earshot. Dumbledore is disturbed by the outcome. I imagine he is, Lucius said dryly. His carefully laid plans for Potter's upbringing have been thoroughly dismantled. He will not give up so easily, Severus warned. He speaks of prophecies and destinies. Let him speak, Narcissa said firmly. Harry is under our protection now. Magically, legally, and in every way that matters. That night, Harry experienced his first totally nightmare-free sleep since arriving at the manor. And when Narcissa checked on him in the early hours, as had become her habit, she found him sleeping peacefully, a small smile on his face, the watchlight charm glowing softly above his bed. Sleep well, Harry, she whispered. You're home now. As she turned to leave, she noticed Draco standing in the doorway, watching her. Is Potter really going to stay forever? He asked quietly. That's the plan, Narcissa confirmed, guiding her son back toward his own room. Does that bother you? Draco considered this seriously. He's not as annoying as I thought he would be, he admitted. And he's really good at flying, even better than me sometimes. And... He hesitated, then added in a rush, it's nice having someone else around. The manor gets lonely when you and father are busy. Narcissa's heart twisted at her son's admission. I'm glad you're getting along with him. He's still not getting my best racing broom when I get a new one, Draco clarified quickly. Just so you know. Narcissa smiled, tucking her son back into bed. Of course not. That would be excessive generosity. Exactly, Draco yawned, already drifting back to sleep. Malfoys aren't excessive. Narcissa kissed his forehead, thinking of the ancient rite of protection and the golden light that had connected her to Harry Potter, the unlikely new addition to their family. Indeed not, she murmured. Just exactly generous enough. Chapter 3, The New Heir. Harry ducked behind the ancient oak tree, heart pounding in his chest. The summer air filled his lungs as he pressed his back against rough bark, listening intently for any sound of pursuit. 8 years old now, he'd gotten taller and stronger in the 2 years since coming to live with the Malfoys, but he was still smaller than Draco and definitely smaller than the older boys currently hunting him. Come out, Potter, called Marcus Flint's taunting voice. The 13-year-old son of one of Lucius's business associates had a mean streak a mile wide. We just want to show you a new spell. Yeah, right. The last spell they'd shown him had turned his hair green for 3 days. Harry peeked around the tree and spotted Flint and his cronies about 30 yards away, searching the gardens. A garden party at Malfoy Manor always meant children getting bored and wandering off, usually with some poor kid becoming the target of impromptu games. Today that kid was Harry. If father catches them hexing me again, they'll be in huge trouble, Draco had whispered before running to get help, leaving Harry to evade capture alone. Harry slipped from his hiding spot and darted toward the hedge maze. If he could reach it, he knew all the shortcuts Draco had shown him. The older boys would get hopelessly lost while "There he is," shouted Theodore Nott, pointing directly at Harry. Crud. Harry sprinted faster, but his shorter legs couldn't outpace the older boys. Just as he reached the maze entrance, a spell whizzed past his ear, singeing the hedge beside him. "Hey," he protested, spinning around. "You could have hit me with that." Flint smirked, twirling his wand between his fingers. "That was the idea, Potter." The three older boys formed a semicircle, cutting off Harry's escape routes. He stood his ground, trying to look braver than he felt. "What's your problem, Flint?" Harry demanded. "I didn't do anything to you." "You exist," Flint sneered. "Walking around Malfoy Manor like you belong here. The great Harry Potter, living with purebloods. It's disgusting." "You're just jealous because Draco likes me better than you," Harry shot back, immediately regretting the taunt when Flint's face darkened. "Furnunculus." Flint cast, and Harry only just managed to dive aside, the boil-causing hex hitting the ground where he'd stood. "That's illegal," Harry shouted. "Underage magic outside school." "My father's wand," Flint explained with a nasty grin. "Ministry can't tell who's casting." "Now hold still, Potter. I'm just going to improve your famous scar a bit." Harry's back hit the hedge. Nowhere left to run. Flint raised his wand again, and Harry threw up his hands instinctively. What happened next surprised everyone. As Flint's next hex flew toward him, a brilliant shield of golden light burst from Harry's outstretched hands. The spell rebounded, hitting Nott instead, who yelped as painful boils erupted across his face. "What the?" Flint gaped. Harry stared at his hands in shock. He hadn't meant to do that. He'd performed accidental magic before, but never anything so deliberate. The momentary distraction was all he needed. Harry bolted, ducking between the stunned boys and racing toward the main gardens where the adults gathered. He nearly collided with Draco, who was rushing back with reinforcements in the form of his mother. "Harry." Narcissa's normally composed face showed genuine concern as she took in his disheveled appearance. "What happened?" "Flint and his friends," Harry panted. "They tried to hex me, but something weird happened. I made a shield, I think. Without a wand." Narcissa's eyes widened slightly, but before she could respond, angry shouts erupted behind them. Nott emerged from the maze, face covered in painful-looking boils, with Flint and a third boy trailing behind. "Look what Potter did to me." Nott wailed, pointing accusingly. Narcissa's expression cooled to Arctic temperatures. "Mr. Nott, I believe you'll find that underage magic is prohibited, particularly against a younger child under my protection." "I didn't," he reflected, Nott stammered. "Mother," Draco interjected, "Flint stole his father's wand." They cornered Harry in the maze. The temperature around Narcissa seemed to drop several more degrees. Did they indeed? Even Flint had the sense to look nervous now. Narcissa Malfoy's reputation for protecting her boys had grown legendary among pure-blood circles over the past 2 years. "Mr. Flint," she said with deadly calm, "please go fetch your father." "Mr. Nott, I'll accompany you to find yours. I believe we need to have a discussion about appropriate behavior toward family members while guests in our home." As Narcissa led the grumbling boys away, Draco turned to Harry with wide eyes. "You really made a shield? Wandless?" Harry nodded, still stunned himself. "It just happened. I didn't even think about it. Flint was about to hex me, and suddenly there was this golden light." Draco looked impressed despite himself. "Father's going to flip when he hears. He loves when you do powerful accidental magic." That was true enough. While Lucius Malfoy had initially been cold toward Harry, his attitude had shifted dramatically as Harry's magical abilities became apparent. The first time Harry had accidentally summoned a book from across the room at age 7, Lucius had actually smiled at him, a genuine smile, not the calculated one he used in public. "Let's go tell him now," Draco suggested, excitement lighting his pointed face. "He's talking with Minister Fudge by the fountain." They hurried through the elegantly dressed crowd of the Malfoys' midsummer garden party. The crème de la crème of wizarding society mingled on the vast lawns, sipping expensive elf-made wines and pretending not to conduct serious political business between canapés. Harry had grown more comfortable at these events over time, though he still disliked how people stared at his scar or whispered behind their hands when he passed. Today he was dressed identically to Draco in expensive green dress robes tailored perfectly to his frame, no more oversized hand-me-downs like at the Dursleys. The memory of his former life had faded to something distant and unpleasant, like a bad dream. Sometimes Harry found it hard to believe he'd ever lived in a cupboard. Sometimes he even forgot to flinch when adults raised their hands too quickly near him. They found Lucius by the grand fountain, deep in conversation with Minister Fudge and several important-looking wizards. Harry recognized Barty Crouch Sr. from the Department of International Magical Cooperation and a tall black wizard Lucius had introduced as Kingsley Shacklebolt, a rising star in the Auror department. "Father," Draco interrupted without hesitation, "Malfoys, Harry had learned, believed themselves entitled to interrupt anyone. Harry did wandless magic. He made a shield against Flint." Lucius's eyebrows rose fractionally, his equivalent of open-mouthed shock. "Did he now?" All eyes turned to Harry, who shifted uncomfortably under the scrutiny. "It was just accidental magic, sir. Accidental shield charms at 8 years old." Fudge blustered, looking impressed. "Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable." "The Potter bloodline was always magically powerful," Crouch observed clinically. "Combined with whatever happened that night with you-know-who." "Indeed," Lucius cut in smoothly. "Harry continues to show exceptional promise. We've been providing specialized tutoring, of course." Harry resisted the urge to roll his eyes. Lucius never missed an opportunity to take credit for Harry's abilities, as though 2 years of Malfoy influence had erased his previous, unfortunate upbringing, as Lucius delicately called it. "Very impressive, young man," Kingsley said directly to Harry, his deep voice kind. "Shield charms are difficult even for trained wizards." "Thank you, sir," Harry replied politely. "I don't know how I did it, really." "Natural talent," Fudge declared, patting Harry's shoulder awkwardly. "Just like your father. James Potter was a formidable duelist, you know." Harry perked up at the mention of his father. Despite living with the Malfoys for 2 years, information about his parents came in frequently and usually from outsiders. Lucius rarely mentioned James Potter, and when he did, it was with a tightness around his mouth that suggested he was restraining himself from saying something unpleasant. "Was he really good at dueling?" Harry asked eagerly. "One of the best," Kingsley confirmed with a smile. "Your mother was no slouch either. Brilliant at charms work." "Perhaps we should return to our discussion," Lucius suggested smoothly. "Boys, I believe your mother was looking for you. Something about dessert being served soon." The dismissal was clear. Harry and Draco obediently retreated, but not before Harry caught Lucius giving him an appraising look that had become increasingly common, as though calculating Harry's worth. "Your father's always doing that now," Draco commented as they walked toward the dessert pavilion. "Showing you off to his important friends. Does it bother you?" Harry asked carefully. Their relationship had evolved from initial hostility to a complex brotherhood, complete with rivalries, inside jokes, and occasional jealousy. Draco shrugged, trying to look nonchalant. "He's just using your fame. Politics and all that. It's not like he likes you better than me." "Course not," Harry agreed quickly. "You're the Malfoy heir. I'm just Harry." "You're not just Harry anymore though, are you?" Draco pointed out. "You're Harry Potter almost Malfoy. Mother treats you exactly like she treats me." That was true. After the magical judgment ritual 2 years ago that had granted Narcissa guardianship, she had thrown herself into mothering Harry with the same fierce devotion she showed Draco. She checked on Harry when he had nightmares. Taught him proper table manners and wizarding etiquette. Kissed his forehead at bedtime. Defended him ferociously against anyone who dared question his place in their family. Anyway, Draco continued, his momentary jealousy fading, did you see Not's face? Covered in boils. That was brilliant. Harry grinned despite himself. He deserved it. They were 3-on-1. Typical Slytherin odds, Draco said with unexpected self-awareness. Father says never fight fair if you can help it, but Mother says true strength is protecting those smaller than you. Your mother's right, Harry said firmly. Course she is. She's always right. Draco straightened his robes importantly. That's why Father pretends he came up with her ideas himself. Harry laughed, and they joined the crowd of children gathering for dessert. The rest of the afternoon passed pleasantly, with Flint and his friends keeping their distance after whatever Narcissa had said to their fathers. Later that evening, after the guests had departed and the house elves were cleaning up, Harry found himself summoned to Lucius's study. This wasn't unusual. Lucius often wanted reports on Harry's magical progress, but the timing was odd. Harry knocked respectfully on the heavy oak door. Enter, called Lucius's voice. The study always intimidated Harry slightly. Dark wood paneling, hundreds of leather-bound books, artifacts of dubious origin displayed in glass cases, and Lucius himself seated behind an enormous desk like a king on his throne. Today, however, Narcissa was also present, perched elegantly on a leather armchair near the fireplace. Ah, Harry. Come in, Lucius gestured to the chair opposite Narcissa. We wanted to discuss today's incident. Harry sat cautiously. I'm sorry if I caused trouble, sir. I didn't mean to perform magic. You misunderstand, Lucius said smoothly. We're not displeased. Quite the contrary. Accidental magic of that caliber at your age is exceptional. Indeed, Narcissa agreed, her blue eyes warm. We're proud of you, Harry. Harry relaxed slightly. Even after 2 years, praise still felt foreign and wonderful. Thank you. The incident highlights something we've been considering for some time, Lucius continued. Your legal status. Harry tensed again. My status? The 6-month probationary period ended long ago, Narcissa explained gently. We have temporary guardianship, but not permanent legal custody. Dumbledore continues to petition the Wisengamot periodically, Lucius added, his distaste for the Hogwarts headmaster evident. While he hasn't succeeded, he remains persistent. He still wants to take me away? Harry asked, alarmed. The fear of being removed from the Malfoys had receded over time but never completely disappeared. He claims to be concerned for your safety, Narcissa said with a delicate sniff that conveyed exactly what she thought of that excuse. However, Lucius leaned forward, there is a more permanent solution available to us now. One that would settle the matter definitively. Harry looked between them, confused. What solution? Adoption, Narcissa said simply. Magical adoption, to be precise. Harry's breath caught. You mean, become a Malfoy? Officially? It would involve a blood ritual, Lucius explained, watching Harry closely. Ancient magic that would recognize you as part of our family. Not by replacing your parents, he added quickly, seeing Harry's expression, but by adding our family's protection to your bloodline. You'd remain Harry Potter, Narcissa clarified, but with an additional connection to the Malfoy and Black families. It would create magical kinship bonds that even Dumbledore couldn't challenge. Harry's mind raced. Part of him had always wondered if the Malfoys' interest in him was temporary, a political calculation or a novelty that would eventually wear off. Adoption meant permanence. Family. Belonging. Would I look different? He asked hesitantly. The ritual might bring out certain familial traits, Lucius acknowledged. A slight resemblance to Narcissa perhaps, as the primary blood donor. But you would still be recognizably yourself. Your parents' child. Most importantly, Narcissa added, the magical protection I invoked 2 years ago would become permanent and unbreakable. No one could legally or magically separate you from us. Harry swallowed hard. What about Draco? Is he okay with this? A small smile touched Narcissa's lips. We've discussed it with him. He says, and I quote, it's about time we made it official. He's been hogging the good brooms for 2 years already. Harry couldn't help but laugh. That sounded exactly like Draco. This is your decision, Harry, Narcissa said, her voice gentle. We won't pressure you. But Harry didn't need to think about it. For all their faults, and he wasn't blind to the Malfoys' prejudices and political scheming, they had saved him, protected him, and gradually, in their own complicated way, loved him. I want to do it, he said firmly. Relief flickered across Narcissa's face, and Lucius nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. We'll begin preparations immediately. The ritual is best performed on the night of the new moon, 10 days from now. As Harry left the study, his mind whirling with this new development, he nearly collided with Draco, who was obviously eavesdropping outside the door. So? Draco demanded. You said yes, right? Harry nodded. Yeah. I said yes. Draco punched him lightly on the shoulder. Good. Now I can officially call you my annoying little brother instead of my annoying almost brother. Harry shoved him back. I'm only younger by a month, you prat. Still counts, Draco grinned. Race you to the kitchens for midnight snacks. You're on. They tore through the hallways of the manor, their laughter echoing off ancient walls that had rarely heard such sounds before Harry's arrival. Diagon Alley bustled with weekend shoppers, the cobblestone street crowded with witches and wizards going about their business. Harry walked between Narcissa and Draco, with Lucius leading the way like a ship's prow cutting through water. People instinctively moved aside for the Malfoy patriarch, though many turned to stare at Harry once they passed. Why exactly did we all need to come for this? Draco complained. I could have stayed home and practiced flying. Because, Narcissa explained patiently, we're preparing for an important family ritual. It's appropriate for all participants to be present when selecting the materials. Besides, Lucius added without turning around, public appearances as a family unit reinforce our narrative. Harry had learned that almost everything the Malfoys did in public was calculated for political effect. Today they were shopping for ingredients needed for the adoption ritual, but they were also very deliberately being seen as a united family. Their first stop was Gringotts, where Lucius conducted a lengthy private meeting with their account manager while Harry, Draco, and Narcissa waited in a private sitting room. Will the ritual hurt? Harry asked Narcissa quietly while Draco flipped through a goblin financial magazine. No more than a mild pinch, she assured him. 7 drops of blood from each participant, Lucius, myself, you, and Draco, combined with certain rare potions ingredients and activated by specific incantations. The magic itself is painless, though you may feel unusual as the bonds form. Will I still be me? Harry asked, voicing his deepest fear. Narcissa's expression softened. She reached out to brush his perpetually messy hair from his forehead, a gesture that had become familiar and comforting over the past 2 years. You will always be you, Harry. The ritual doesn't change who you are, it simply adds to your magical identity. Think of it as gaining something rather than losing anything. That made sense. Harry nodded, feeling better. When Lucius returned, they proceeded to their next destination, Slug and Jigger's apothecary for the rarer potions ingredients. The shop's pungent smells made Harry's nose wrinkle as they entered. Ah, Mr. Malfoy, the proprietor greeted obsequiously. Your special order has been prepared. Lucius nodded regally and handed over a heavy pouch of galleons for a small package wrapped in black velvet. Harry wondered what could possibly cost so much, He'd learned enough about wizarding currency to know that was a small fortune. Their next stop was Twilfit and Tattings, an upscale clothing shop that Harry had come to know well over the past 2 years. Malfoys, he had learned, considered proper attire essential for any significant magical working. The ritual robes must be newly made and unworn, Narcissa explained as a tape measure floated around Harry, taking measurements on its own. White for you, as the one being brought into the family, black with silver threading for us, as the receiving family. The Seamwitch fawned over them, promising the robes would be ready within days and treating Harry exactly the same as Draco, something that still occasionally surprised him after years of being treated as worthless by the Dursleys. As they exited the shop, a flash of bright red hair caught Harry's eye across the street. A large family was emerging from quality Quidditch supplies, more redheads than Harry could quickly count. Weasleys, Draco muttered with undisguised disdain. Lucius's lip curled slightly, but Narcissa placed a warning hand on his arm. Lucius, she murmured. Not today. Too late. The tallest red-headed man had spotted them and was guiding his family across the street. Harry had heard plenty about the Weasleys from the Malfoys, blood traitors, according to Lucius, who consorted with Muggles and lived in shameful poverty despite their pure-blood status. Arthur, Lucius greeted coolly as the families converged. Shopping for the entire clan today, I see. How economical. The red-headed man's friendly expression tightened. Lucius. Narcissa. His eyes moved to Harry, widening slightly at the scar visible beneath his tousled fringe. And you must be Harry Potter. We've heard a lot about you. It's Harry Potter Malfoy now, Draco interjected proudly. Well, almost. We're doing the ritual next week. Harry elbowed Draco discreetly. The adoption was supposed to be private until completed. A plump, kind-faced woman pushed forward. Harry, dear, it's lovely to meet you. I'm Molly Weasley. I knew your parents, you know. Harry perked up immediately. You did? Oh yes, we were all in the Order together during the war. I'm sure Harry doesn't need to be troubled with ancient history, Lucius interrupted smoothly. Particularly in the middle of Diagon Alley. The boy has a right to know about his parents, Lucius, Arthur Weasley said firmly. A younger red-haired boy about Harry and Draco's age pushed forward, staring at Harry with undisguised curiosity. So you really live with the Malfoys? Willingly. Ronald. Molly scolded. What, the boy, Ronald, protested. Everyone wonders. I'm very happy with my family, Harry said stiffly, feeling protective of the Malfoys despite knowing exactly how prejudiced they could be. They take good care of me. I'm sure they do, Arthur said diplomatically, though doubt flickered in his eyes. If you ever want to visit us at the Burrow, Harry, you'd be more than welcome. Your father and mother often came for dinner. Thank you, but Harry's schedule is quite full, Narcissa interjected before Harry could respond. Private tutoring, social engagements, proper deportment lessons. Being a normal kid, suggested one of two identical red-headed boys with a cheeky grin. Throwing garden gnomes, added the other. Playing exploding snap until your eyebrows singe off, continued the first. Despite himself, Harry grinned. They seemed fun. We really must be going, Lucius said coldly. Good day, Weasleys. He placed a hand on Harry's shoulder, steering him away. Harry glanced back to see the large family watching them leave, the youngest boy making a face at Draco, who returned it with interest. Blood traitors, Draco muttered once they were out of earshot. Father says they have more children than they can afford. They seemed nice, Harry said quietly. Narcissa gave him a calculating look. Many people seem nice, Harry. It doesn't mean their intentions are good. The Weasleys are firmly in Dumbledore's camp, the man who left you with abusive muggles for years. Put that way, Harry had to admit she had a point. Still, the Weasley mother had known his parents. How many people could say that and were willing to talk about them? Their final stop was Flourish and Blots, where Lucius selected several ancient-looking tomes about family magic. As they browsed, Harry wandered toward the history section, curious about something that had been bothering him more lately. "Looking for something specific?" Narcissa asked, appearing beside him. Harry hesitated. "I was just wondering, about Voldemort." Narcissa flinched at the name. "We don't say that name, Harry." "Sorry." "You know who," Harry corrected himself. "It's just, everyone knows he tried to kill me, but nobody ever explains why." "Why my parents? Why me?" A shadow crossed Narcissa's face. The Dark Lord had his reasons, though they weren't always clear even to his followers. "But you and Uncle Lucius know, don't you?" Harry pressed. You were connected to his side. They'd never hidden this fact from Harry, though they described it as political alignment rather than servitude. Lucius had explained that he believed in preserving magical traditions and pureblood culture, not in murdering innocents, and had been under the Imperious curse for the worst actions attributed to him. Harry wasn't entirely sure he believed this explanation, but he'd accepted it as the official family position. "There are some questions better left for when you're older," Narcissa said finally. "After the adoption ritual, when you're truly protected by our family magic, then we can have a more complete discussion about the past." Harry wanted to argue but recognized the finality in her tone. "Promise?" "I promise," Narcissa said solemnly. "No more secrets once you're fully under our protection." "You'll understand everything then." "That would have to be enough for now." Harry nodded reluctantly. They collected Lucius and Draco and made their way back to the Leaky Cauldron to flee home. As they passed Ollivander's wand shop, Harry slowed, gazing at the dusty window display. "Only 3 more years until you get your wand," Narcissa reminded him with a smile. "It will come before you know it. Father says he might be able to get special permission for us to get wands early," Draco bragged. "For educational purposes." "That remains to be seen," Lucius said noncommittally. "The law exists for good reason. Young wizards need physical and magical maturity before handling wands properly." Harry nodded, though he could hardly wait. Sometimes his magic seemed to buzz under his skin, especially when he was emotional, seeking an outlet. A proper wand would help channel that power constructively instead of exploding in unpredictable bursts of accidental magic. As they passed through the Leaky Cauldron, the pub fell silent, patrons turning to stare at the unusual sight of Harry Potter with the Malfoy family. Harry kept his head high, the way Narcissa had taught him, ignoring the whispers that followed. "Did you see him? With the Malfoys? Poor boy, probably bewitched. Heard they're adopting him. Dark magic, has to be." Once home at the Manor, Harry felt himself relaxing. Whatever complicated politics surrounded his placement with the Malfoys, this place had become his home. His bedroom with its Quidditch posters and magical toys. The gardens where he and Draco raced on brooms. The library where Narcissa taught them about wizarding history and culture. "I'm going to practice flying," Draco announced immediately. "Coming, Harry?" "In a bit," Harry replied. "I want to ask your parents something first." Draco shrugged and headed off toward the broom shed, while Harry approached Lucius and Narcissa as they sorted through their purchases in the drawing room. "Yes, Harry?" Narcissa prompted. "I was wondering, after the adoption ritual, would it be okay if I invited a friend to visit? Someone who could tell me about my parents?" Lucius raised an eyebrow. "You're thinking of the Weasleys?" "Not necessarily," Harry hedged, though that was exactly who he'd been thinking of. "Harry," Narcissa said gently, "we understand your desire to learn about your birth parents. It's natural and right. But there are people better suited to share those memories than the Weasleys." "Like who?" Harry challenged. "You never talk about them." Lucius and Narcissa exchanged glances. After the ritual, Lucius said finally, "I will arrange for you to meet Remus Lupin. He was a friend of your father's from school." More appropriate company than blood traders. Harry brightened. Someone who'd actually known his father at school. Really? Really, Narcissa confirmed. We want you to know your history, Harry. We've never intended to erase your past, only to provide you with a better future. Harry impulsively hugged her, something that had become easier over the years. Thank you. Now go join Draco before he accuses us of favoring you again, Narcissa smiled, returning the hug briefly. As Harry ran off to the gardens, Lucius turned to his wife. Remus Lupin. A werewolf, Narcissa. Better a werewolf we can control with financial incentives than the Weasleys filling his head with Dumbledore's propaganda, Narcissa replied pragmatically. Besides, Lupin was always the most reasonable of Potter's friends. And with Sirius in Azkaban. A troubled expression crossed her face at the mention of her cousin, but she quickly composed herself. The boy needs connections to his past, Lucius. Better they come through us than behind our backs. Lucius nodded reluctantly. Always thinking 3 steps ahead. It's why I married you. You married me because my father threatened to hex off certain valuable parts of your anatomy if you didn't, Narcissa reminded him with a rare teasing smile. Lucius actually laughed, a sound rarely heard in Malfoy Manor before Harry's arrival had gradually softened some of the family's harder edges. 3 days before the scheduled adoption ritual, Harry woke to urgent whispers outside his bedroom door. He'd always been a light sleeper, a survival skill from his cupboard days, and something in the tone set him on edge immediately. Silently, he crept to the door and pressed his ear against it. "Attack in Devon," came Lucius's voice, uncharacteristically tense. "The dark mark above the house." "That's not possible," Narcissa whispered back. Unless someone is sending a message," Lucius finished. "The timing cannot be coincidence, Narcissa. 3 days before we bind Potter to our family permanently." Harry's heart raced. The dark mark, he knew from his lessons with Narcissa that this was Voldemort's symbol, the skull and snake that had terrorized Wizarding Britain during the war. "We must accelerate the preparations," Narcissa decided. "The ritual can be performed tonight instead. Without the proper moon phase. Without the full 7-day cleansing. It will still work. Less powerful perhaps, but sufficient to establish the protection." Narcissa's voice hardened. "I will not risk Harry." Their footsteps receded down the hall. Harry stood frozen by his door, mind whirling. An attack? The dark mark? Did this mean Voldemort was back somehow? Or his followers? He dressed quickly and slipped out of his room, heading not toward the dining room where the family usually breakfasted, but to Draco's room. He found his almost brother still in bed, blankets pulled over his head. "Draco," Harry hissed, shaking him. "Wake up." "Go away," Draco mumbled. "Too early. Something's happened. Your parents were talking about an attack. The dark mark." That got Draco's attention. He sat bolt upright, blonde hair sticking up in uncharacteristic disarray. "What?" Harry quickly relayed what he'd overheard. Draco's normally pale face went even whiter. "The dark mark? You're sure?" Harry nodded. "They're moving the ritual to tonight. Your mother seemed worried." Draco looked troubled. If someone cast the dark mark, it must be one of the old crowd, father's former associates. "Death Eaters," Harry said bluntly. The Malfoys tended to use euphemisms, but Harry preferred directness. "Yes, them," Draco agreed uncomfortably. He'd gradually become less enthusiastic about his father's former allegiances as he'd grown closer to Harry. But why would they attack now? And who did they attack? "I don't know," Harry admitted. "But your parents think it's connected to my adoption." Draco frowned. "That makes sense, actually. Not everyone who followed the Dark Lord would be happy about his supposed conqueror becoming a Malfoy. You think someone's trying to stop the ritual? Or send a warning," Draco said grimly. We should get downstairs. Father will tell us what we need to know. But when they reached the breakfast room, they found only Narcissa, looking perfectly composed as she sipped her tea, though Harry noted the slight tension around her eyes. "Good morning, boys," she greeted them calmly. "You're up early. Where's father?" Draco asked without preamble. "He had business at the ministry," Narcissa replied smoothly. "He'll return this afternoon." Harry and Draco exchanged glances. "Mother," Draco began carefully, "we heard about the attack." Narcissa's cup paused halfway to her lips. "Did you now? Is it true?" Harry pressed. "Someone cast the dark mark. Is that why we're doing the ritual tonight instead of waiting?" A flicker of calculation crossed Narcissa's face before she set down her cup with deliberate precision. "Yes. There was an incident in Devon last night. A wizarding family was attacked, and the dark mark was cast above their home." "Who was attacked?" Harry asked, dreading the answer. "The Lovegoods," Narcissa said. "Xenophilius and his daughter escaped unharmed, fortunately. Their home suffered some damage." "The Lovegoods?" Draco frowned. "But they're purebloods. Odd ones, but still purebloods. Why would Death Eaters target them?" "That," Narcissa said carefully, "is what your father has gone to determine. The timing suggests the attack may be related to our family's upcoming ritual." "Because of me," Harry said flatly. "Because the Death Eaters don't want me officially becoming part of your family." "We don't know that for certain," Narcissa cautioned. "But as a precaution, yes, we've decided to perform the ritual tonight. The protective elements are the most crucial, and those will work regardless of the lunar phase." "Is it dangerous?" Harry asked. "For you and Uncle Lucius, I mean. If the Death Eaters don't want this to happen." Something softened in Narcissa's expression. "Your concern does you credit, Harry, but the Malfoy family has weathered far worse storms than this. Our decision to bring you into our family officially was not made lightly, and we will not be deterred by threats, veiled or otherwise." Her voice carried absolute conviction, and Harry felt a rush of gratitude toward this woman who had found him in a garden 2 years ago and changed his life forever. "Now," Narcissa continued briskly, "eat your breakfast. We have much to prepare for tonight. The ritual robes were rushed from the seamstress this morning, and several rare ingredients need to be prepared precisely." The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity. House elves scurried about cleaning and preparing the manor's ancient ritual room, a circular chamber beneath the east wing that Harry had never entered before. Narcissa spent hours brewing a complex potion in her private laboratory, allowing Harry and Draco to watch but not help. Lucius returned mid-afternoon, his face grim as he disappeared into his study with several ministry officials Harry didn't recognize. When he emerged, he gathered the family in the drawing room. "The situation is under control," he announced without preamble. "The attack appears to have been the work of Antonin Dolohov, who escaped Auror capture after the war. The Lovegoods were targeted because Xenophilius recently published an article sympathetic to Harry's placement with our family. Dolohov was one of the inner circle," Draco whispered to Harry. "Really dangerous. Has he been caught?" Narcissa asked sharply. "Not yet," Lucius admitted. "But Aurors are tracking him. The attack was sloppy, he left magical signatures. It appears he may have been working alone. Or wants us to think so," Narcissa observed shrewdly. Lucius inclined his head slightly. "Indeed. Which is why we proceed with the ritual tonight, with additional security measures in place." "Security measures?" Harry questioned. "Several trusted associates will guard the manor perimeter," Lucius explained. "The ritual itself requires privacy, but the grounds will be well protected." "What about Dumbledore?" Harry asked suddenly. "Will he try to stop it when he finds out?" Lucius's lips curved in a cold smile. "Dumbledore will not learn of the ritual until it is complete. I've ensured the ministry paperwork will be delayed in processing. By the time he receives official notification, the magic will be done. Harry wasn't entirely comfortable with such manipulation, but he understood the necessity. Dumbledore had never stopped trying to remove him from the Malfoys, though his efforts had grown less frequent and more subtle over time. As evening fell, the family gathered in their respective rooms to prepare. Harry stood before the mirror in his bedroom, examining his reflection in the simple white ritual robe. It felt strange, lighter than air yet somehow substantial, the magic woven into its fabric making his skin tingle slightly. A knock came at his door. "Come in," he called. Narcissa entered, resplendent in black robes with intricate silver embroidery depicting stars and ancient runes. Her blonde hair had been woven into an elaborate braid interspersed with tiny silver beads. "Almost ready?" she asked. Harry nodded. "I think so. I'm a little nervous." "That's natural," she assured him, adjusting his robes slightly. "This is powerful old magic. Your body can sense it. Will it hurt when the blood part happens?" "No more than a pinprick," Narcissa promised. "And the pain has purpose, freely given blood carries powerful intent." She studied his face for a moment, then added, "I want you to know something, Harry. When I found you in that garden 2 years ago, I acted on instinct, the instinct to protect a child in danger. I had no grand plan, whatever Lucius might have later constructed." "I know," Harry said softly. He'd always sensed that Narcissa's motivation had been purer than her husband's. "Over these 2 years, you have become as much my son as Draco," she continued, her blue eyes intent. "This ritual tonight simply makes official what has already happened in my heart. You understand that?" Harry's throat tightened with emotion. "Yes." "Good." She straightened, composing herself. "Now, there's something else. After the ritual, when the magical protections are in place, there are things you need to know. Truths about your parents' deaths, about why the Dark Lord targeted your family." Harry's eyes widened. "You promised you'd tell me everything after the adoption." "And I will," she confirmed. "Some of it will be difficult to hear. Some of it may change how you think of us. But you deserve the truth, and after tonight, you'll have the protection of our family magic to help you process it." Before Harry could ask more questions, another knock came at the door. Lucius and Draco entered, similarly attired in black and silver robes, though Draco's were slightly simpler than his father's. "It is time," Lucius announced solemnly. They proceeded in silence through the manor, descending a spiral staircase Harry had never used before. The air grew cooler and heavy with ancient magic as they reached the ritual chamber. Harry gasped softly as they entered. The circular room was carved from living stone, with a domed ceiling depicting the night sky as it currently appeared outside. 7 ornate silver pedestals surrounded a central altar of black marble. Upon each pedestal burned a different colored flame, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, illuminating the chamber with rainbow light. "The 7 magical elements," Narcissa explained quietly. "Earth, air, fire, water, spirit, time, and space, all witnesses to our working tonight." In the center of the altar lay a large silver bowl engraved with runes, surrounded by 7 small vials of different potions, a ritual knife of gleaming silver, and a parchment covered in ancient text. "Take your places," Lucius directed. They formed a square around the altar, Lucius at the north point, Narcissa at the south, Draco at the east, and Harry at the west. "The ritual begins with the invocation of family magic," Lucius intoned, raising his hands. "I, Lucius Abraxas Malfoy, head of the noble house of Malfoy, call upon the magic of my ancestors to witness this working." The green flame flared higher. "I, Narcissa Black Malfoy, daughter of the most ancient and noble house of Black, joined by marriage to House Malfoy, call upon the magic of my bloodline to witness this working." The blue flame responded to her call. "I, Draco Lucius Malfoy, heir to the noble house of Malfoy, call upon the magic of my heritage to witness this working." The yellow flame brightened at Draco's words. All eyes turned to Harry, who swallowed nervously and repeated the words Narcissa had taught him. I, Harry James Potter, last of the House of Potter, call upon the magic of my parents to witness this working and bless this new bond. To Harry's amazement, the red flame leapt almost to the ceiling, burning twice as bright as the others. Lucius's eyebrows rose fractionally, the Malfoy equivalent of open-mouthed shock. The Potter magic acknowledges you strongly, Narcissa murmured, looking impressed. That's a good sign. Lucius recovered quickly and continued the ritual. We gather to invoke the ancient rite of magical adoption, to bring Harry James Potter into the protection and lineage of houses Malfoy and Black, not supplanting but supplementing his birth lineage of House Potter. One by one, he uncorked the 7 potion vials and poured their contents into the silver bowl, where they swirled together in mesmerizing patterns of color. Blood freely given carries intent and power, Narcissa recited, taking up the ritual knife. Mine first, as the one who invoked the initial protection. She pricked her palm and allowed 7 drops of blood to fall into the mixture, which began to glow with a soft silvery light. With my blood, I offer you a mother's protection, a mother's guidance, a mother's love. May my family's magic recognize you as my son in magic if not in birth. Lucius went next, his face solemn as 7 drops of his blood joined the potion. With my blood, I offer you a father's strength, a father's wisdom, a father's name. May the Malfoy magic accept you into our lineage and extend to you its ancient protections. Draco stepped forward, looking uncharacteristically serious as he pricked his finger and added his contribution. With my blood, I offer you a brother's loyalty, a brother's rivalry, a brother's companionship. May we stand united as sons of House Malfoy from this day forward. Finally, it was Harry's turn. The silver knife felt cool against his skin, the quick sting of the cut barely registering as he held his hand over the now brightly glowing mixture. With my blood, he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, I accept these bonds of family, these ties of magic, this new branch to my lineage. May the Potter magic flow alongside the magic of houses Malfoy and Black in my veins, strengthening each other rather than diminishing. 7 drops of his blood fell into the potion, which suddenly erupted in a column of golden light that reached toward the domed ceiling. Drink, Lucius instructed, carefully lifting the bowl and offering it first to Harry. The potion tasted simultaneously bitter and sweet, cold and hot, ancient and new, contradictions that somehow made perfect sense as the magic flowed through him. Harry passed the bowl to Narcissa, who drank and passed it to Lucius, who finally gave it to Draco to consume the last drops. The moment Draco finished, all 7 colored flames shot toward the center of the room, converging above their heads in a spectacular display of magical energy. Harry felt a strange pulling sensation in his chest, as though invisible threads were connecting him to the other 3 people in the room. By blood, by magic, by intent freely given, Narcissa and Lucius chanted together, we bind Harry James Potter to our lineage, creating Harry James Potter Black Malfoy, son of James and Lily by birth, son of Lucius and Narcissa by choice and magic. The swirling light suddenly plunged downward, enveloping Harry in a cocoon of magical energy. He gasped as the power flowed through him, around him, into him. It didn't hurt, exactly, but the sensation was overwhelming, like being filled with light from the inside out. Just when he thought he couldn't contain any more magic, the light sank into his skin and vanished, leaving the room illuminated only by the normal 7 flames once more. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Narcissa stepped forward, her eyes wide as she gazed at Harry. Oh, she breathed softly. What? Harry asked, suddenly self-conscious. Did it work? Lucius conjured a full-length mirror with a wave of his wand, positioning it before Harry. See for yourself. Harry stared at his reflection in shock. He still looked fundamentally like himself, same messy black hair, same lightning bolt scar, same green eyes behind his glasses. But there were subtle differences, his jawline had sharpened slightly, reminiscent of Narcissa's aristocratic features. His hair, while still unruly, had developed a slight wave similar to what he'd seen in photos of the Black family. His eyes remained Lily's green, but their shape had altered just enough to echo Narcissa's. "I look like a perfect blend," Narcissa finished, standing behind him with undisguised pride. "Potter, Black, and Malfoy features in harmony. The ritual was more powerful than I expected." "You can feel it, can't you?" Draco asked, coming to stand beside Harry. "The family magic?" Harry nodded, unable to properly articulate the sensation. It was like a warm current flowing beneath his skin, a sense of connection and belonging he'd never experienced before. "It is done," Lucius declared formally. "From this moment forward, Harry James Potter Black Malfoy is recognized by magic and law as our son, under our protection, part of our lineage while maintaining his birth heritage." He placed a hand on Harry's shoulder, a rare gesture of physical affection from the usually reserved man. "Welcome to the family, son." Officially. The simple words, spoken with unexpected warmth, broke something loose in Harry's chest. Tears welled in his eyes as the full impact hit him. He had a family. A real, magical, permanent family. Not just guardians who might change their minds, not temporary caretakers, but parents and a brother bound by magic and choice. Without thinking, he threw his arms around Lucius in an impulsive hug. The man stiffened momentarily in surprise before awkwardly patting Harry's back. Narcissa and Draco joined the embrace, forming a family circle that hummed with the newly established magical connections between them. "I can feel it," Harry whispered. "I can feel all of you." "The bonds will settle over the coming days," Narcissa explained gently. "The sense of connection will become less overwhelming but remain present." "Like background music instead of a blaring wireless," Draco suggested helpfully. As they ascended from the ritual chamber back to the main floor of the manor, Harry felt simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. The family retired to the drawing room, where house elves had prepared a light meal to help them recover their energy after the magical working. "I feel different," Harry commented, flexing his fingers and watching with fascination as tiny sparks of magic danced across his skin. "More settled somehow. The family magic helps stabilize your personal magic," Lucius explained, sipping a glass of elf-made wine. "You may find your accidental magic decreases while your intentional control improves." "Does this mean I can have a wand now?" Harry asked hopefully. Lucius actually chuckled. "Nice try. The age restriction remains, regardless of family status." "Worth a shot," Harry grinned, exchanging a look with Draco. The peaceful family moment was interrupted when a house elf appeared with a soft pop. "Master Lucius," the creature squeaked, "Professor Dumbledore is at the gates, demanding entry. He says it is most urgent." The relaxed atmosphere vanished instantly. Lucius's face hardened. "How did he know?" he murmured, more to himself than to them. "It doesn't matter," Narcissa said calmly. "The ritual is complete. The protections are in place. He cannot undo what has been done." "Perhaps not," Lucius agreed, rising to his feet, "but he can certainly make things unpleasant. Boys, to your rooms. Narcissa and I will handle Dumbledore." "But," Harry began to protest. "Harry," Narcissa's voice was gentle but firm. "The ritual has taken much of your energy, whether you feel it yet or not. You need rest. And this confrontation is not for children to witness." "We're not children," Draco muttered, but obediently stood. "We'll tell you everything tomorrow," Narcissa promised. "For tonight, let us handle this." Reluctantly, Harry followed Draco upstairs. But instead of going to their separate bedrooms, they silently agreed to convene in Draco's room, which offered a view of the front drive from its windows. "Look," Draco whispered, pointing down to where Dumbledore stood outside the manor's front doors, his purple robes visible even in the dim evening light. "He looks angry." Harry had never seen the headmaster in person before, only in photographs. The tall, silver-bearded wizard projected power even from a distance, his normally twinkling eyes replaced by a steely glare as he confronted Lucius and Narcissa on the manor steps. "I wish we could hear what they're saying," Harry sighed. We can, Draco grinned mischievously, pulling out a flesh-colored string from his pocket. Extendable ear, prototype from Zonko's. Father confiscated it from me last month, but I nicked it back from his study. He carefully lowered the magical eavesdropping device out the window, directing it toward the confrontation below. After a moment of adjustment, voices became audible. Completely irresponsible. Dumbledore was saying, his normally jovial voice hard with anger. Blood adoption without ministry oversight? Without consulting his magical guardian? His magical guardian failed him utterly, Narcissa's cool voice replied. And the ritual was perfectly legal. The paperwork was filed this morning. Filed but not processed, Dumbledore countered. A deliberate attempt to circumvent proper channels. There was an attack last night, Lucius said smoothly. The dark mark above the Lovegood residence. Surely you're aware. We had reason to believe Harry might be in danger. Convenient timing, Dumbledore observed dryly. Almost as if someone wished to create a justification for rushing this ritual. Harry and Draco exchanged shocked glances. Was Dumbledore suggesting the Malfoys had orchestrated the attack themselves? How dare you, Narcissa's voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. You left that boy with abusive muggles for years. You ignored reports of his mistreatment. You fought us at every turn when we offered him a loving home. And now you have the audacity to stand on our doorstep and question our motives? I question what Harry doesn't know, Dumbledore replied evenly. Does he understand what this ritual means? Does he know why Voldemort sought to kill him in the first place? Does he know about the prophecy? Harry's breath caught. Prophecy? What prophecy? He knows what is appropriate for his age, Lucius said dismissively. The rest will come in time. He deserves the truth, Dumbledore insisted. And he will have it, Narcissa interjected, from us, when we deem him ready. Not from you, who kept the truth of his very heritage from him for years. The blood wards were failing due to abuse, Narcissa interrupted coldly. You know this. The evidence was presented in court. A heavy silence fell. When Dumbledore spoke again, his voice had lost some of its anger, replaced by what sounded almost like weariness. What's done is done. The ritual cannot be undone. But understand this, Lucius, Narcissa, Harry's destiny was set in motion before he was born. You cannot shield him from it forever, no matter how many blood rituals you perform. We do not seek to shield him from his destiny, Lucius replied with surprising candor. Merely to ensure he reaches adulthood adequately prepared to face it. Then we share at least one goal, Dumbledore said. I will be watching. And when Harry comes to Hogwarts, he will come as a Potterblack Malfoy, Narcissa finished firmly. Our son as well as James and Lily's. Remember that, headmaster. The conversation appeared to be concluding. Draco quickly reeled in the extendable ear as Dumbledore turned to leave. A prophecy? Harry whispered once they were sure they wouldn't be overheard. About me? Draco looked troubled. Father never mentioned a prophecy. Your mother promised to tell me everything after the ritual, Harry remembered. Maybe this is part of what she meant. They retreated to Draco's bed, sitting cross-legged opposite each other as they had countless times over the past 2 years, discussing everything from Quidditch to complex magic theory. How do you feel? Draco asked after a moment. Different? Harry considered this. Yes and no. I still feel like me, but also, more. Like I have deeper roots now. He glanced at his reflection in Draco's mirror across the room, still adjusting to the subtle changes in his appearance. Do I look weird to you? Draco studied him critically. Not weird. Just more Malfoyish. It suits you, actually. He grinned suddenly. Father's going to have a fit when he realizes you got Mother's cheekbones. I got stuck with his pointy chin. Harry laughed. Your chin isn't that pointy. Is too. Pansy Parkinson said I could cut parchment with it. They dissolved into laughter, the tension of the evening dissipating. When Narcissa checked on them an hour later, she found them both asleep on Draco's bed, magical exhaustion having finally caught up with them. Rather than separate them, she simply conjured a blanket and draped it over both boys, her heart full as she observed her sons, one by birth, one by choice and now by magic, peacefully sleeping side by side. "They look so innocent," Lucius observed from the doorway. "They are innocent," Narcissa replied softly. "Despite everything. Dumbledore will not give up," Lucius warned as they left the room. "And the attack on the love goods may be only the beginning if Dumbledore is truly acting on old loyalties." "Let them come," Narcissa said with quiet ferocity. "I've made my choice, Lucius. Harry is our son now in every way that matters. Anyone who wishes him harm will have to go through me first." "Through us," Lucius corrected, surprising her. Whatever his origins, whatever Dumbledore's prophecy claims, the boy is a Malfoy now. And Malfoys protect their own. Morning sunlight streamed through Harry's bedroom window, waking him with its warmth on his face. For a moment, he was disoriented. Hadn't he fallen asleep in Draco's room? Someone must have moved him during the night. He sat up, memories of the previous evening flooding back. The ritual. The adoption. Dumbledore's unexpected arrival. The mysterious mention of a prophecy. Harry examined his hands in the sunlight, fascinated by the subtle changes. His fingers seemed slightly longer, more elegant, more like Narcissa's. Climbing out of bed, he went to the mirror above his dresser and studied his reflection again. The changes weren't dramatic enough that strangers would notice, but anyone who knew him well would see the difference immediately. His face had taken on some of the aristocratic structure of the Black family, while his posture seemed naturally more formal, a Malfoy trait. Yet his eyes remained vibrantly, undeniably Lily Potter's, and his hair retained James Potter's unruly character, though now with a hint of the Black family's waves. A perfect blend, Narcissa had called it. A knock at his door interrupted his self-examination. "Come in," he called. Narcissa entered, already dressed in elegant blue robes, her hair perfectly arranged despite the early hour. "Good morning, Harry. How are you feeling?" "Good," Harry replied honestly. "Rested. The magic feels more settled this morning." Narcissa smiled. "That's to be expected. May I?" She gestured toward his face, and when he nodded, she gently tilted his chin, examining the changes. "The Black family traits suit you. My father had the same cheekbones." "Draco's jealous," Harry grinned. "He says he got stuck with Uncle Lucius's pointy chin." Narcissa laughed, the sound light and musical. "Draco exaggerates. Though I must admit, the Malfoy profile is rather distinctive." Her expression grew more serious. "Harry, once you're dressed and have had breakfast, Lucius and I would like to speak with you in the library. As I promised, now that the ritual is complete and you're protected by our family magic, there are things you need to know." Harry's heart quickened. "About the prophecy Dumbledore mentioned?" Narcissa's eyebrows rose. "You heard that conversation? Extendable ears, I presume. Draco's influence, no doubt." Harry looked sheepish. "Sorry. I'm not angry," Narcissa assured him. "In fact, it makes things easier. Yes, we will discuss the prophecy, among other things. The full truth about your parents' deaths and the Dark Lord's interest in you. What about Draco? Will he be there too?" Narcissa hesitated. "Some of what we need to discuss concerns complicated family history. Draco will join us for part of the conversation, but some elements are for you alone, at least initially." Harry nodded, understanding the delicacy of the situation. The Malfoys' past associations with Voldemort had always been a carefully navigated topic in their household, acknowledged but not discussed in detail, particularly around Harry. "I'll be down soon," he promised. After a quick breakfast, during which Draco pestered him with questions about how he was feeling after the ritual, Harry made his way to the Manor's vast library. The enormous room housed thousands of books on magical subjects ranging from the commonplace to the arcane, with several comfortable seating areas scattered throughout. Lucius and Narcissa waited in the most private corner, seated in high-backed leather chairs arranged around a small table. A pensieve, which Harry recognized from Narcissa's lessons on magical artifacts, sat at the center of the table, its silvery contents swirling mysteriously. "Ah, Harry," Lucius greeted him formally. "Please, sit." Harry took the indicated chair, noticing the subtle protective runes carved into the arms. This was clearly a conversation they wanted to ensure remained private. "Before we begin," Narcissa said, drawing her wand, "I'm going to cast several privacy charms. What we discuss today must remain within this family." Harry nodded his understanding as she wove complex protective spells around their seating area. "Now then," Lucius began once the protections were in place, "as promised, we will share with you the complete truth about your past and the circumstances that led to your parents' deaths. Some of this information is difficult, and would not normally be shared with someone your age. However, your unique situation requires transparency. We believe you're mature enough to handle this knowledge," Narcissa added, "especially now that our family magic can help stabilize your reactions to potentially upsetting information." Harry sat straighter in his chair. "I want to know everything." "Very well," Lucius nodded. "Let us begin with the prophecy Dumbledore mentioned. Shortly before your birth, a prophecy was made concerning the Dark Lord and a child who would have the power to defeat him." "Me," Harry said softly. "Yes," Narcissa confirmed. "Though it could initially have referred to one of two children born at the end of July 1980, you or Neville Longbottom." "Longbottom?" Harry repeated in surprise. "But then why, the Dark Lord chose you," Lucius explained. "For reasons known only to him, he interpreted the prophecy to mean you were the greater threat." "What exactly did the prophecy say?" Harry asked. Lucius and Narcissa exchanged glances. "We don't know the exact wording," Narcissa admitted. "Only Dumbledore knows the full prophecy. What we know is that it predicted a child born at the end of July to parents who had defied the Dark Lord 3 times would have the power to vanquish him. The Dark Lord learned of the prophecy's existence and the first part of its contents from a spy," Lucius continued carefully. "This led him to target your family specifically. But there's more to it than that," Harry guessed, watching their faces. "Something you're not telling me." "Yes," Narcissa acknowledged. "The night the Dark Lord came to Godric's Hollow, he offered your mother a choice. This is not widely known. He told her to step aside, that he had come only for you, not for her." Harry felt a chill run through him. Why would he spare her? Another exchange of glances between the adults. "That," Lucius said carefully, "relates to information we only learned recently ourselves, through certain contacts. It appears the spy who reported the prophecy to the Dark Lord later begged for your mother's life to be spared." "Who was the spy?" Harry demanded, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. "Severus Snape," Narcissa answered quietly. Harry's jaw dropped. "Professor Snape? Draco's godfather? The man who's been in and out of this house for 2 years? He's the reason my parents are dead." "It's more complicated than that," Narcissa said quickly. "Severus didn't know who the prophecy referred to when he reported it. When he realized it meant Lily, your mother, he went to the Dark Lord and begged for her life, then to Dumbledore to warn your family." "Why would he care about my mother specifically?" Harry asked, confusion temporarily overriding his anger. "They were childhood friends," Narcissa explained. "Before Hogwarts and during their early years there. They grew apart later, but Severus never stopped caring for her." Harry struggled to process this information. The sour, hook-nosed man who occasionally visited the manor and always regarded Harry with a strange, unreadable expression had been friends with his mother. Had tried to save her. But had also delivered the prophecy that marked Harry for death. "I don't understand," he said finally. "If Voldemort, please don't say the name," Lucius interjected automatically. If the Dark Lord, Harry amended, only wanted me, and was willing to spare my mother, why did he kill her? Because she refused to step aside, Narcissa said softly. She stood between you and the Dark Lord and refused to move, even when given the choice to save herself. She sacrificed herself for you, Lucius added. That sacrifice created the blood protection that allowed you to survive the killing curse and destroyed the Dark Lord's physical form. Harry felt tears welling in his eyes. He'd known his mother died protecting him, but to learn she'd been given a choice and still chose him. The magnitude of her love was overwhelming. This is why the blood wards at your aunt's house supposedly protected you, Narcissa continued gently. Dumbledore extended your mother's sacrifice protection through her blood relation, your Aunt Petunia. But protection magic relies on intent and love. When your aunt treated you with cruelty rather than love, the protections weakened. And now? Harry asked. With the adoption ritual? Our family magic now reinforces and extends your mother's protection, Lucius explained. Different in nature but equally powerful in its own way. The blood adoption doesn't replace your mother's sacrifice, it builds upon it, creating layers of magical protection. Harry nodded slowly, absorbing this. You said before that the Dark Lord's physical form was destroyed. Does that mean that he might return somehow? Yes, Lucius confirmed grimly. Many of his followers, myself included, he held up a hand to forestall Harry's reaction. Yes, Harry, I was once among his followers, as you've known, many believed he took steps to ensure he could not truly die. Steps like what? Dark magic, Narcissa said simply. Too dark to discuss even now. But yes, there is a possibility he may find a way to return to physical form someday. And the prophecy says I'm supposed to defeat him? Harry asked, his voice small. But I'm just a kid. How could I possibly? The prophecy doesn't dictate your actions, Narcissa said firmly. It merely predicts a possibility. You have choice, Harry. You always have choice. But if he comes back, he'll try to kill me again, won't he? Likely, yes, Lucius acknowledged bluntly. Which is why we've taken steps to ensure you're properly protected and prepared. The adoption ritual was one such step. Your education is another. This is why you've been testing my magic, Harry realized. Why you get so interested when I show strong abilities. Partly, Lucius admitted. Though your magical potential would be impressive regardless of any prophecy. Harry fell silent, processing everything he'd learned. His parents' deaths, the prophecy, Snape's role, the possibility of Voldemort's return, it was almost too much to comprehend. There's something else you should know, Narcissa said after giving him a moment. About the night your parents died. We have a memory to show you, not of the event itself, but of the aftermath. It may help you understand certain complications in our family history. She gestured to the pensieve. This is a memory from Lucius, from the night after the attack on Godric's Hollow. Harry looked at the swirling silver substance nervously. Will it hurt? No, Lucius assured him. But it may be emotionally difficult. You'll witness a conversation between myself and another of the Dark Lord's followers, your godfather, Sirius Black. My godfather? Harry repeated in shock. I have a godfather. Where is he? Why hasn't he? He's in Azkaban prison, Narcissa interrupted gently. Convicted of betraying your parents to the Dark Lord and murdering 12 muggles and a wizard named Peter Pettigrew. Harry felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath him. My godfather betrayed my parents. That's the official version, Lucius said carefully. This memory may suggest a more complicated reality. Hesitantly, Harry leaned toward the pensieve. How do I? Simply touch the surface with your face, Narcissa instructed. We'll go with you. Together, the three of them bent forward until their faces touched the silvery substance. Harry felt a swooping sensation, and suddenly they were standing in a dimly lit room he didn't recognize. A younger Lucius Malfoy paced before a fireplace, his long blonde hair loose around his shoulders, his face taut with tension. A loud banging came from what appeared to be the front door. "Stay back," Memory Lucius called to someone off-screen, presumably Narcissa with baby Draco. He drew his wand and approached the door cautiously. When he opened it, a wild-looking man with long dark hair stood there, his handsome face contorted with grief and rage. Harry recognized him immediately from the Black family portraits Narcissa had shown him. This was Sirius Black, looking nothing like the aristocratic pureblood he'd been raised as. "Where is he, Malfoy?" Sirius demanded, pushing his way inside. "Where's Pettigrew?" "Black," Memory Lucius said coldly. "You have some nerve coming here after what you've done." "What I've done?" Sirius laughed, a horrible, broken sound. "I've done nothing. It was Pettigrew, he was the secret keeper, not me. He betrayed them to Voldemort." Memory Lucius flinched at the name. "You expect me to believe that? Everyone knows you were the Potter's secret keeper." "That was the point," Sirius shouted, anguish clear in his voice. "It was supposed to be the perfect bluff. Everyone would assume it was me, while Peter, that rat, we trusted him." Memory Lucius studied Sirius with narrowed eyes. "You're saying Pettigrew betrayed the Potters? That the Dark Lord's most useful spy was that insignificant wizard?" "Yes. And now he's disappeared, and I'm going to find him and kill him for what he did to James and Lily." Sirius's voice broke on their names. "And for orphaning Harry." "The boy survived," Memory Lucius said carefully. "The Dark Lord is gone. I know Harry survived. He's my godson. I need to get to him. Hagrid took him on Dumbledore's orders, but I'm his rightful guardian." Sirius ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I just need to find Peter first, make him pay." "Black," Memory Lucius interrupted sharply. "Think. If what you're saying is true, if Pettigrew was the traitor and is now in hiding, rushing after him without proof is exactly what he would want. You'll be blamed for everything." Sirius froze, something like dawning horror on his face. "You think he planned this? To frame me?" "I think," Memory Lucius said precisely, "that if Pettigrew was clever enough to spy for the Dark Lord without detection, he's clever enough to have an exit strategy. One that might involve you taking the fall." "I need to go to Dumbledore," Sirius muttered. "Explain everything. Then get Harry. Dumbledore already believes you were the secret keeper," Memory Lucius pointed out. "And has likely already made arrangements for the boy. If Pettigrew has disappeared, you have no proof of your innocence." Sirius looked desperate now. "I have to try. Harry belongs with me, not with—" "Wait, why are you helping me? You were one of them." Memory Lucius's face became carefully blank. "The Dark Lord is gone. Those of us with families must adapt to changing circumstances." "You're saving your own skin," Sirius said with sudden understanding. "Going to claim Imperius, are you?" "We all do what we must," Memory Lucius replied smoothly. "I'm merely suggesting you consider your next actions carefully. Rushing after Pettigrew without a plan plays into his hands." "I don't have time for plans," Sirius exploded. "Every minute I waste, Peter gets farther away, and Harry, my godson, needs me." "Then you've already lost," Memory Lucius said coldly. "Pettigrew will have prepared. You'll be walking into a trap." But Sirius was already heading for the door. "I have to try. For James and Lily. For Harry." "Black," Memory Lucius called after him. "If you're caught, no one will believe you over Pettigrew. Not without evidence." "I'll make him confess," Sirius growled. "In front of witnesses if I have to." As he wrenched open the door, Memory Lucius said, "The boy will be with Lily's sister. Dumbledore believes in blood protection." Sirius paused, looking back in surprise. "Petunia? That magic-hating shrew? That's where he's taking Harry?" Memory Lucius merely inclined his head slightly. Why tell me this? Sirius demanded. Because contrary to what you may believe, Black, not all of us wished harm to come to magical children, Memory Lucius replied. Even half-blood ones. Sirius gave him one last suspicious look before disappearing into the night. The memory shifted briefly to show Memory Lucius returning to the sitting room, where a younger Narcissa waited with a tiny blonde Draco in her arms. Will he listen? She asked quietly. No, Memory Lucius replied. He's too much a Gryffindor. He'll rush headlong to his doom, and with him goes any chance of the Potter boy being raised by someone other than those muggles. Perhaps that's for the best, Memory Narcissa murmured, looking down at Draco. With the Dark Lord gone, we must focus on our own family now. The memory dissolved, and Harry found himself back in the library, sitting opposite the present-day Lucius and Narcissa, who watched him with concern. Sirius Black was innocent? Harry asked, his voice barely above a whisper. We believe so, yes, Narcissa confirmed. He was arrested the next day after supposedly cornering Pettigrew in a Muggle street. Witnesses claimed Sirius blew up the street, killing 12 Muggles and Pettigrew, of whom only a finger was found. But if the memory is true, then Pettigrew was the real traitor, Harry said slowly. He faked his death and framed Sirius. That is our suspicion, Lucius agreed. Though we have no proof beyond this memory, which would be considered self-serving if presented to authorities. Why are you showing me this now? Harry asked. Why not tell me about Sirius before? Because before the adoption ritual, it wouldn't have helped you, Narcissa explained gently. Sirius is still in Azkaban. Even if he were somehow exonerated, he's been there for 7 years, exposed to Dementors daily. He would not be capable of caring for a child. Also, Lucius added pragmatically, revealing our knowledge of his potential innocence would raise uncomfortable questions about my own past that could have jeopardized our custody of you. Harry nodded slowly, understanding the complex political calculations involved, even if he didn't entirely like them. He's my mother's cousin, isn't he? Sirius Black. Yes, Narcissa confirmed. And my cousin as well. The Black family connections were another factor in our favor when invoking the protection right 2 years ago. Is there any way to help him? Harry asked. To get him out of Azkaban if he's innocent? Lucius and Narcissa exchanged glances again. It would be extremely difficult, Lucius said cautiously. Without Pettigrew, there's no proof. And many powerful people would resist reopening the case. Including Dumbledore? Harry guessed shrewdly. Possibly, Narcissa acknowledged. Dumbledore was chief warlock when Sirius was imprisoned without trial. It would reflect poorly on him if it were discovered an innocent man had been sent to Azkaban on his watch. Harry fell silent, processing everything he'd learned. His entire understanding of his past had shifted in the span of an hour, the prophecy, his mother's sacrifice, Snape's complicated role, his innocent godfather languishing in prison, the potential return of Voldemort someday. I know this is a great deal to absorb, Narcissa said gently. But we believed you deserved the truth, now that you're officially part of our family and protected by our magic. Thank you, Harry said sincerely. For telling me. For not treating me like a child who can't handle difficult truths. You've never been an ordinary child, Harry, Lucius observed. Your circumstances have always been exceptional. One more question, Harry said. If the Dark Lord does return someday, where will you stand? You were his follower once. Lucius's face became very still. It was Narcissa who answered. When I performed the blood adoption ritual, Harry, I made a magical commitment to you that supersedes any previous allegiance. The family magic would not have accepted you otherwise. What she means, Lucius clarified after a moment, is that our family's protection of you is now bound in magic too powerful to break. Whatever comes, you are our son now. Our first loyalty is to family. It wasn't exactly a direct answer, but Harry understood the subtext. The Malfoys would protect him, even against their former master, because magic itself now bound them to do so. Draco should join us now, Narcissa suggested. He deserves to know some of this, particularly about the possible threats we may face in the future. When Draco arrived, looking curious and slightly put out at having been excluded from the initial conversation, they shared a carefully edited version of what Harry had learned, focusing on the prophecy and the possibility of future danger, while minimizing the more complicated aspects of Lucius's past involvement with Voldemort. So basically, Draco summarized with typical bluntness, Harry's destined to fight the Dark Lord if he comes back, and we're all going to be in danger because we've adopted him. That's one way of putting it, Lucius said dryly. Wicked, Draco grinned at Harry. Good thing we've been practicing dueling with those toy wands. You'll need all the help you can get. Harry couldn't help but laugh at Draco's cavalier attitude toward what should have been terrifying news. Somehow, his almost brother's nonchalance made the whole situation seem more manageable. We'll face whatever comes together, Narcissa said firmly. As a family. As they left the library, Harry felt oddly lighter despite the heavy revelations. The truth, complicated and painful as it was preferable to the half-truths and missing pieces that had characterized his understanding until now. That night, as he prepared for bed, Harry stood before his mirror again, studying the new blend of features that marked him as part of three families, Potter, Black, and Malfoy. His mother's green eyes stared back at him, now set in a face that showed hints of Narcissa's aristocratic beauty alongside James Potter's stronger jaw. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. Narcissa entered, carrying what looked like a small wooden box. I have something for you, she said, sitting on the edge of his bed and patting the space beside her. Harry joined her, curious. She handed him the intricately carved box, which felt warm to the touch, as though the wood itself contained magic. This arrived this afternoon from Gringotts, she explained. Part of the legal process of the adoption involves notification to your family vaults. It seems the Potter vault recognized the blood adoption and released this to you earlier than would normally be permitted. Harry opened the box carefully. Inside, nestled on velvet, lay 2 rings and a folded piece of parchment. One ring was clearly a signet, bearing what he recognized as the Potter family crest. The other was a simple gold band with tiny runes engraved along its surface. Your father's signet ring and your mother's wedding band, Narcissa explained softly. Along with a letter they left in trust for you. With trembling hands, Harry unfolded the parchment. The handwriting was elegant and flowing, his mother's, he somehow knew instinctively. My dearest Harry, if you're reading this, then our worst fears have come to pass, and your father and I are no longer with you. I hope with all my heart that you are safe, loved, and growing into the wonderful person we already see in you, even as an infant. We've left these rings for you as tangible reminders of our love. James's signet carries not just the Potter crest, but generations of family magic. My ring is simpler but contains protection charms your father and I worked on together, a blend of his pureblood traditions and my unconventional approach to magic, as he fondly called it. There's so much I want to tell you, so much I fear I'll never have the chance to say. Know that you were loved, Harry, deeply, completely, impossibly loved. Whatever darkness may have taken us from you, love is stronger. It lives on in you. If you've received this earlier than your 17th birthday, it means the goblins have recognized a formal adoption through blood magic. I want you to know that this doesn't hurt us or betray our memory. Family can be found in many forms, and if someone has loved you enough to bring you into their family through the ancient rites, then they have my gratitude. Whoever you've become, whatever family name you may have added to Potter, remember that you carry us with you always, not just in your blood or your appearance, but in the capacity for love and courage I know you possess. With all our love, Lily, and James Potter. Tears flowed freely down Harry's face as he finished reading. Narcissa placed a gentle arm around his shoulders, offering silent comfort. She knew, Harry whispered. Somehow she knew I might be adopted someday. Your mother was exceptionally bright, Narcissa said softly. And in dangerous times, magical parents often make extensive provisions for their children. She wasn't angry about it, Harry continued, still amazed. About me being adopted by another family? Of course not, Narcissa assured him. No mother would begrudge her child finding love and protection after she was gone. Harry carefully placed the rings back in their box, but folded the letter and placed it under his pillow. Thank you for giving this to me. It's yours by right, Narcissa replied. She hesitated, then added, I know I can never replace Lily Potter, Harry. I would never try. But I hope you know that I have come to love you as my own son. I know, Harry said simply. And he did know, had felt it in countless small ways over the past 2 years, and now felt it through the family magic that connected them. I love you too, Aunt Narcissa. He smiled slightly. Though I suppose it should just be mother now, shouldn't it? Something bright and joyful flashed in Narcissa's eyes. If you wish it. I think I do, Harry decided. If that's okay. In answer, Narcissa pulled him into a proper hug, not the reserved, proper embraces that were standard in pureblood circles, but the kind of all-encompassing mother's hug Harry had once thought he'd never experience. When she finally released him, she brushed his hair back from his forehead with tender fingers. Sleep well, my son. Whatever the future holds, we face it together. As Harry drifted off to sleep that night, his mother's letter beneath his pillow, he felt the family magic humming contentedly through his veins, Potter courage, Black resilience, and Malfoy determination blending into something uniquely his own. Whatever prophecy loomed in his future, whatever dark forces might someday rise again, he would face them not alone, but with the strength of 3 ancient bloodlines and the love of a family he had found against all odds. He was Harry Potter Black Malfoy now. And for the first time in his young life, he felt truly, completely whole. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.